Go.
Sweet.
Well, Ralph, this is your second time here.
Yeah, it is.
Little different now,
It
huh?
is.
Right.
It is.
Little different.
All the improvements.
Welcome
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, welcome back.
Glad to be back.
Let's see, this is the third repeat guest. we've
Yeah.
had. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Jamie was one, Alex Glover was the other.
Means
and
I didn't
Mr.
mess
Ralph
it up
Haas.
too bad
That's
last time.
no, man.
We
It was
thoroughly
great.
enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed
Great.
it.
Well, Ralph, let's start in the beginning. Where were you born? And take us through your childhood.
I was born in Spruce Pine Hospital.
All right.
Right up to here. I was a very little feller, about 4 pounds, 4 ounces. They tell me the first thing they told my grandmother is I was born on Philip's birthday. And the second thing they told her is I wasn't bigger than a rat. That's what coming in. Obviously, it did not stunt me from developing in the process. My dad worked at Henry Don Furniture. He put in 37 years at Henry Don Furniture before he retired. Jump companies.
Yeah.
Ethan
Like
Allen,
everybody did,
Masco, everybody else that was up there, swept the floors when they closed the plant. That's what coming in. My mom taught high school here, started at Bowman, then was one of the first teachers that came when they opened Mitchell and taught there, and then ran the Chamber of Commerce afterwards. I went to school here up until 10th grade, and then was accepted and went to the North Carolina School of Science and Math in Durham.
I didn't know that.
Awesome.
So I 15-year-old. I'm
Wow.
moving into a residence hall all by myself,
Wow.
packing. Whole lot of interesting roommate experiences and everything else. Graduated there. I went to Appalachian State University. Not a really successful first year at Appalachian State. I had
Really?
a lot of things I wanted to do other than go to class. And,
Sure. I
Those
think
kinda
we've all
things.
been there.
yeah, and got the opportunity after that first year to come back here and work a little bit, and
Nice.
went to OMC for a while and did that, and then Sonopress and Weaverville. Moved through the temp agencies. It's coming in. Was going to go to work in Uniman before I decided to go back to school, and so I wound up at the guardhouse at Uniman until I went back. I was telling you earlier, most boring job ever created.
Yeah.
There were times I would work a 16-hour shift and did not see a human from the time I left
Yeah.
till they came back, and stared at a dark parking lot. I tell people my only job was to stay awake.
Yeah.
Coming in. But went back to Appalachian, finished my degree in statistics there. First job I had really when I left, I went to D.C. and right outside of D.C. became a statistician for the U.S. Census Bureau.
Really?
Worked in manufacturing
Wow.
construction division. I put out reports on a monthly and quarterly basis on how much construction occurred in the United States, what's the value of construction put in place. We did monthly. Really interesting kind of reporting system. We'd have to do all the analytics, put the report out. I'd have to go to Commerce with a briefcase handcuffed to my desk and give it to
Wow.
the press in a lead-lined room. They got 30 minutes to write their story before they'd flick the switch and they could broadcast out. You could sit and watch MSNBC or those kind of things at the time, and they'd say, the value of construction put in place for March was released today, and it was up
Right.
8%. And whatever else, and the market reacted. Loved doing that, but decided I needed to go to grad school, so I came back to NC State and went into the statistics program, but then they offered me a hall director job, which covered full tuition and everything else.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
An
I
RD
became-
job, huh?
I became a hall director and switched to higher ed administration as my major. After I graduated there, I finished grad school, went to work at Georgia Southern University, both in faculty and those. I was there a little more than a year, and I got a call from the Bush Cheney campaign.
Really?
And a friend of mine also from Mitchell County, Danny Gurley, that was here, was working with the RNC at the time, and they needed someone to do some analytics for the Bush Cheney campaign. And so as soon as the year opened, John Edwards was on the ticket. And they were worried about North Carolina.
Sure.
And so I
So it was
left.
a strategic hire for them.
So I left, came back to North Carolina, lived all over from Raleigh to Charlotte and everything else for the whole campaign cycle. Won that, thought I was kind of looking for another job, and the university system. But in that time period, I happened to go to what was Abundant Life at the time to see a friend of my mom's daughter was involved in a production.
Yeah.
And, lady sitting in the choir that I became very interested in and happened to meet her there. And Bill Slagle and others started a whole youth group just for us to meet.
Yeah.
That's coming in. And my wife Lynn and I have now been married for 16 years here.
God, I can't believe it's been that
That's
long.
covered in. They're 17 years. Our boys are 16
Yeah.
now. That's covered in. And it was just an amazing run. I finally got a position at Mayland Community College working research and planning. And Wes Foy called me one day and said, I'm not going to run for mayor again. And you need to run for the position of mayor. And he talked to me, and I talked to several other people, decided I would do it, filed, was running unopposed. About a month after I filed, we had a nice little mental health patient try to burn down the entire town of Spruce Pine.
Yes,
yeah.
we did.
Before I was even sworn in.
Yep, I remember that.
That's what coming in. So served 2 terms as mayor, mostly focused on just trying to rebuild the town.
Right.
It was devastating to us.
Yeah.
We still got buildings burned out and
Yeah.
holes
Yeah.
sitting on downtown, and a real big challenge. But some other things went down, and I got in a big conflict with our state senator. That's coming in. He had.
Who was that at the time?
Joe Sam Queen.
Joe Sam Queen. That's right.
That's
I
the
remember
man.
those days.
And he was wanting us, we were arguing with him over a provision for the ridge laws and an industry that was wanting to build here and wanting to put windmills in. And he was trying to stop it. And he'd told the town, I'll tell you when we're having the hearing, you can come down and speak. He called the town hall at 9:30 in the morning before the hearing started at 10. This was coming in, told us we could come down if we wanted to.
Wow.
And so I spent 6 months trying to find somebody to run against him. And I didn't find anybody I think was going to win. Had a tough primary to begin with, but filed for that race. And not only did I win, but first time in 147 years, leadership had changed in the General Assembly.
Wow.
It had been Democrats since the Civil War, and quite frankly, Republicans cheated after the Civil War because they wouldn't let anybody serve who had been the Confederacy. So it eliminated enough Democrats that the Republicans had a majority.
Right.
And so when I got there, I remember sitting down with Philip Fry and Mitch Gillespie, and they told me all these stories about how, your freshman year, you sit on the back row, you're kind of quiet, you don't really get involved in anything,
Right.
whatever else. And I, understood the way the system goes. They'd both been in the house for a while. I got down there the second day, the day after swearing in Senator Tom Apodaca from Hendersonville. I walked into the Commerce Committee and he said, well, you got to start sometime. You're chairing today. They handed me the gavel and I
Wow.
chaired the Commerce
Wow.
Committee on my second day in the General Assembly.
Wow.
Because when we had taken over, they didn't even have enough senior member Republicans. Our freshman class was so big to chair all the committees.
Really?
They had to put freshmen in because of the way, one member doesn't have time to cover 3 committees.
Now remind me, that first year you got, was that the Tea Party year?
It's 2010 was the election. We were
Right.
sworn in 2011.
Right. Gotcha. So you it was a sweep in with that
It
whole
was.
Tea
It was.
Party
It was
nationwide thing.
Obama's midterm election.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what coming. We'd just gone from 2008. The Democrats carried and won North Carolina. Obama had won North Carolina. 2010, it collapsed and they lost
completely.
everything from the floor to the ceiling.
And was that Patrick McQuarrie?
No, that
Pat
was
McCrory?
still Bev Perdue was governor.
Ma Bev was still in, huh?
That's what coming. She filled that. Walter Dalton was lieutenant governor. And so it was 2 years after that Pat McCrory,
Pat McQuarrie got in.
came in and ran. So
That microphone a little bit closer to you if you don't care.
Well, listen, I want to ask you go back to your childhood. So your mom, we all knew your mom. We love your mom. And she's a foundational figure in this community. Can you speak a little more to how your mom influenced you, not only in your character, but maybe even in your politics and in your
Yeah.
yeah.
Mom grew up in Beulah. Her dad was a war veteran from World War II. Her mom ran the cafeteria at Beulah School. That's coming in. Mom really only had an option to go to college because Warren Wilson offered a scholarship to pair people in rural western North Carolina with international students. And so mom, I always say, went to Warren Wilson in the 60s. So if you think there might be a little difference in some of our politics at the time.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit different place over there nowadays. Yeah.
Coming through and, mom was always one, education is the reason, she came out and her family members came out of the situations they were in. My grandparents didn't have indoor plumbing until 1988.
Wow.
I was 12 years old. And when they moved, but the house was there, had the outhouse, 100 yards, had to work, had to take and that was not uncommon here.
No, it really was.
They're a few years later than most people kind of got out of that, but you took a bath in the kitchen. They heated a tub of water and poured it in there, and she had a wood stove.
Wow.
Same when she started at the school, and mom never would go camping because she said she camped out the first 18 years of her life. She didn't want to go back to it.
Touche. Fair enough.
Coming in. Even though my dad loved it, she wasn't going.
Right.
So coming in. And so education was really the reason she kind of broke out. She actually spent her first year as a social worker before she got on at Bowman. Was a social worker with the Koala Boundary and the Cherokee Indians there for a year before she was hired at Bowman.
I didn't know that.
Was able to come back, started as an English teacher, but then finally moved to U.S. history where she wanted to be. And
Was she always a history buff? Because I mean, it jumped off. I don't know about you, but like you could tell that woman loved what she taught.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she was always interested in it. She always big reader, always reading everything in history, those kind of things. And she really had a passion for it when she taught. She used to talk a little bit. That was before me about doing English and those kind of things. But it was history that was really her passion. LBJ and
LBJ was her favorite president.
My mom drank out of the 19th Amendment women's lib mug. And actually in 1988 ran for county commissioner.
Really? I didn't know that either.
I was about 12 at the time. I remember that was my first campaign.
Yeah.
I remember she was running against Fred Pittman and several others because she wound up in a runoff with Fred Pittman. They put me at the Harold Precinct, Building Precinct. It was snowing. Here I am up there, 12-year-old by myself, handing out cards for everybody. Vote for mom, vote for mom. I guess I was 11. I wouldn't have turned 12 till August.
Right.
Vote for mom. Funniest story I'll tell. My grandparents had just moved down. That was the year they had moved down. They put a big sign in the yard my dad and I made. And it said Shirley Hise for county commissioner. And commissioner was abbreviated COMM.
Yeah.
We got that sign up and we left. And my grandmother called us when we got home, said that sign was messed up. Everybody's coming to do it. And apparently when Dad had done it, the M's had gotten switched upside down. Yeah. So it was Harrisburg County Cal with double whatever else. But I remember even that first election, I remember the people that were hauling for mom for county commissioner. We found out they were also paid by one of the other county commissioners, and he was hauling for them at the same time and switching the ballots out for who they were getting. But she was close. She got in the runoff, didn't win the runoff, but that kind of got me into politics, those kind of things. But mom really started to develop, as she taught more, a passion, and she used history to do it, but that her students were going to be successful and they were going to come out of what they did. And she took over the AP side of it. And there was a time going through AP classes, every student she had going through her AP class was scoring a 4 or 5 on the AP exam.
Wow.
And she had them there at 7 o'clock in the morning. And if they were talking, they were sweeping the floors. Other classes were coming in, sweeping the floors at 7 o'clock in the morning. But she made a real impact on so many people.
Sure.
Do you hear that a lot?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you couldn't.
Yeah.
You know?
But, after she taught, so Mom spent about 6 months at home and pretty much about destroyed the house because she couldn't sit still.
Right.
And so she pulled all her carpets up. She'd pulled everything else up. She decided she had to go find a job to do something.
Right.
And so she decided to take over the Chamber of Commerce. They hired her as the director of Chamber of Commerce. And in dealing with the fires and everything else we had there, so she got an idea with a little book called The Year of the Perfect Christmas Tree. And she was going to talk to Gloria Houston, the author of the book. She brought 150 artists together and started developing products to match with the book. And she developed a store, and it did amazing.
Yeah.
When it
that was
coming.
a big thing for this community.
And she called, at the time, Congressman Patrick McHenry, who I'd got to know in the 2004 race and everything else. And she started on him. These products have to go in the White House. That's what coming in. And it was a couple weeks later, she got a call from the White House. Laura Bush was interested in these products in this story. And there were two products: the Carolina Snowflake, Billy Ruth Sudduth made. Luther Stroop did this glass blown ornament in a wooden box. And the White House wanted both of them to decorate for the White House. And she and Patty and the whole group got to go to the White House. HGTV made the major segment uncovering the White House about this project in Mitchell County.
Wow.
You want to talk about some sudden orders coming through on the
Oh,
website.
for sure.
That's what covered it. Like, everybody wanted to capture it. The one question they asked the First Lady from the press that she responded to was about this project and what it meant to the people in Mitchell County. And I actually still have the copy of Laura Bush's memoirs, 3 pages, all about the home of the perfect Christmas tree and the project she'd put together with doing that. Unfortunately, we got the notice last week the Market on Oak is closing.
Yeah.
Which is hard for me.
Yeah. Sure.
That's what coming in, but that was such an amazing inspiration thing to see her do, and she wasn't going to let Patrick go. She wasn't going to let nobody else go until
She
somebody
was like
made
a
his
bulldog.
project.
Once she got a
made
hold
this
of your
project
pant
happen.
leg, she
So,
never let go of it.
Yeah, she and I, I said growing up, she and I had a few arguments because we kind of got some, personalities in there that are willing to discuss things and argue a little bit and all that. But Mom really was amazing, and we went through. She found out it'll be October, be 5 years since she passed away.
It don't even seem like it. It just seems like it was yesterday, Ralph. Well, politically, did she influence you politically?
It's kind of funny.
Or did you guys argue?
Well, we had this yo-yo back and forth. And I said, Mom, not what I would say is a modern Democrat.
Right.
But what was a Democrat in Mitchell County in the 80s is much more what my mom was supportive of. And I think our discussions back and forth is what made me the solid conservative.
Right.
That's what coming in.
Right.
Because I was going to research it and I was going to come things. So when we had those discussions and those kind of things, it wasn't going to be my opinion. It was going to be, making sure I knew what I did. But Mom became a conservative afterwards as we kind of got into politics and everything else. And I'd actually say this as probably most Democrats would say here in Mitchell County. I'm not sure how much she moved and how much they left her.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Mom was socially conservative on social issues and those kind of things. And she couldn't believe that the Democrats were going to make this the center of their party, supporting abortion and doing those kind of things.
Right.
And, I just think the way it happened, and she really much always focused on believe on how you pull yourself up and how you do it through education and creating systems that locked people in and others infuriated her. Or the fact that government was going to be what made you successful infuriated her.
Sure.
It had to come from you. That's what coming in. And I think her positions became conservative later in life.
Right.
And, she was going around with me when I was running for office and those kind of things. And had to go. So I've even got a picture of her with a Trump hat on. So.
Jeez Louise, man. Well, statistics. Wow. Why statistics?
You know what?
Of all things.
I say in the joke, I started as a math major, and then I found variability. Had to go into statistics. It was really one of those challenges for me that I really enjoyed. And statistics, even for some math majors, I could have, my junior year, I could have paid my way through college getting computer science majors that had to take that one stats class that's coming in on distribution theory, and they were dying. Can you tutor me? Can you whatever else? But it was a small group. There were only 7 statistics majors when I was there at Appalachian. Wow. They have since merged it into an applied math major in either data analytics or statistics. Yeah. But so, like, even when we made our schedule, they had to have all 7 of us to make a class. And I'll never forget, like, the phone system you dialed in to register for classes. We'd all get on it before the meeting and sign up for all the 8 and 9 a.m. classes we could get and fill our Friday schedule up. So when the professors got us all together, because they each got one class, the schedule was already locked out and they couldn't do anything before 10 a.m. or anything on Friday. So they would change all our classes to, like, instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it'd be like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
So because they couldn't do Friday. So, and then we go back and drop all those other classes, like after we already had it.
Yeah.
And most of the professors taught intro to statistics, like 4 classes, and then they gave them one class, kind of in their major, to keep running, and that's how they created it. So there was 7 of us graduated together, but yeah, it was great for that. I was like, I never had to worry about a morning class or anything else because we just lay them all out there.
That's smart.
It is.
That's real smart.
Yeah,
it is.
I will be honest with you, though. The only math I loved in college was stats.
Probably
It was a math that made sense to me, like with real world application.
Yeah.
Not that I understand. I'm not one of those people that say, "Well, math has no real world application," because it absolutely does. Trig and calc and all that. But statistics was something you could readily like wrap your head around, and it applied to something that was tangible. You know.
Yeah. And it's really strange because having taught it, doing all this, everything else for years, there are students that are great at math. That's coming in, and you put them into a statistics class, and it's a screeching halt.
Yeah.
Like they finally found the areas difficult. And you can take students who have struggled in math since they were in middle school.
Yeah.
And put them into a statistics class, and they
that was me. That was me too.
That was absolutely me too.
That's what coming in,
and I enjoyed stats.
Yeah,
that was the only math I can honestly say in my entire time. Sorry, I'm banging the table,
Chase.
But that was the only math I ever enjoyed. To be honest, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and I think it has to do with learning styles, and I think it has to do with a lot of different things. But it's amazing. I said, and then when I graduated, not only that, at the headquarters in Suitland, Maryland. From NOAA, from Bureau of Economic Statistics, from the Census Bureau, they had a headquarters where 16,000 statisticians worked on one campus.
Wow.
What is that like?
Not a lot of social skills.
Sure, I can see that.
I'll never forget a guy that good friends with, named was Jim Fagan, had 2 PhDs.
Yeah.
One in mathematics, one in economics. And his entire cubicle was floor to ceiling textbooks.
Oh my gosh.
And he would just literally sit there and rock back and forth all day through his textbooks. If you ever had a code you couldn't get or you couldn't crack, you took it to Fagan. 15 minutes, he would have the answer for you. And the Census Bureau would code it with comments as Fagan code so that nobody else tried to get into it and touch it. It was commented on both sides with a star pattern that said Fagan code. And you had to go find him to change his code.
Wow.
Because if you broke it, it's not pretty.
Right. Jeez, that's great. So what was it like working? Was there any insight you gained by working directly for the federal government?
It's bureaucracy runs amok.
Oh,
wow. Sure.
That's what coming in. We had, I'd say he's an administrative assistant on our floor that would sit there, and she was supposed to answer all the phone calls, but she didn't know how to work the phone. But because she had been there since before the phone system was in place, they couldn't require her to learn the phone.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll never forget. She would sit and yell down the hall of cubicles, somebody get that
Oh my gosh.
for every phone. But, and not just her, but just to say that, like, the federal government had some of the most talented people. And I will say, in the Census Bureau anyway, it's people that might not could have worked anywhere else. Jim Fagan may not have qualified to work at some of your modern IT companies or those kind of things, but they had a really great place there. But they would set it up like if somebody disappeared, they just moved them into the corner. And, they didn't have processes that could remove people or change people, those kind of things. And there was no incentive to step up and do something different or do something new. When you were a GS-12, you were going to be a GS-12 till you had been there 365 days, and then you were going to become a GS-13. It didn't matter how you performed, what you did, those kind of things. And it's
no meritocracy.
Right.
It was
That's interesting.
And so it was a real challenge to kind of, especially coming out your first job, and you're going to go slay the whole world. And most of the advice you're getting is, slow down and just get your report out at the end of the month, kind of things. And so I loved the field and I loved what I did, but that's why I really wanted to go back to grad school and kind of go into the other side of it before I moved into education.
Yeah. So education was still always a sticking point for you, though, because your mom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what coming in. Mom, not only did she go to Warren Wilson, I remember her going summers to get her master's at Appalachian. She'd drive up there on Tuesday nights and then all through the summer till she earned her master's while she was teaching.
Goodness gracious.
Wow.
That's what coming in.
What
When
a
she went
lady.
to get her EDS, she went to Western Carolina. And she took in a summer semester 21 graduate hours
Golly.
Are you joking?
and finished with a 4.0 GPA.
Wow.
That's what COVID did. She literally set her schedule from 11:30 from 6 a.m. to 11:30 at night. She scheduled out every 15 minutes that she was eating, going through, reading, writing papers, those kind of things. Pulled it out, and in a summer semester, I mean, for a fall semester, your full time's like 12 hours. At grad school, it's 9 hours. And she took 21 hours.
in one summer.
Yeah, in one summer semester
That's
to finish
insane.
her EDS.
That is legitimately insane.
And so, kind of those things like, right around the time I was finding other things to do than go to class. That's what COVID did, so I heard it.
Sure.
So to say, so I would say I know you get a lot of flack from the teachers' unions and all that type of stuff. That sure rubs your gears the wrong way.
Yeah, Mom was actually not only part of the NCAE, she was like their state representative on the retirement board. The lobbyist for the teachers union served with her on the retirement board. But it was a lot of dealing with, legitimate issues and those kind of things that teachers experienced then and still do. And now you see, like, the teachers union, when they come to Raleigh, they're not even marching on education anymore. When they came to Raleigh last year, the number one issue on their advocacy was Medicaid expansion.
So are they taking on like social causes now? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the fight with this whole curriculum and transgenderism and those kind of things. That's their marching at the General Assembly now, and it's not even about education.
Well, it seems like it's a lot of that across the board. I mean, maybe some of your manufacturer, your labor unions and manufacturing and stuff like that are still somewhat relevant, but it seems like a lot of those types of organizations no longer even represent or advocate for anything that really has any substance and meaning in the field.
Well, it's their, and I said, it's their funding source.
Yeah.
It's what are they paid to do? What do they continue to do? Whether it's scenic for state employees or NCAE for teachers, like there is real money flows into those organizations in exchange for advocacy for positions.
Right.
And quite frankly, it's almost all under the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the organizations are there to elect Democrats.
Yeah.
And as a Republican, it doesn't matter that I was a state employee or have been a state employee for 15 years. State Employee Association hates me because of my party affiliation. It doesn't matter my connection to education or what we're trying to promote, or that we've taken starting teacher salary to almost $46,000 a year in Mitchell County when it started at 27 when I was in there. But somehow we've never given anyone a raise, and we've destroyed education and those kind of things. Like, the truth isn't in it.
Right.
That's what's coming in. It's all about an agenda.
Sure.
And it's all about a political agenda.
Yeah.
Ralph, what would you say is the percentage of times that you're dealing with social issues as opposed to actual, like, rubber meets the road government issues? Because I wonder, I've often postulated what would happen if you took the social issues out of
the equation.
Equation altogether.
It's interesting. When social issues come up in the General Assembly, they move everything else out. Like, the day we're going to take up whatever the social issue is, there's nothing else on the floor. There's nothing else going on in committees. But that's probably 3 days of session.
Mm.
And almost all social issues there's no surprises in them.
Right.
Like, even if we put it in a bill it wasn't originally in, or those kind of things, like, someone ran an entire campaign for 6 months on what they were going to do on a social issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then they drop it on the floor one day and we run it. My first ran was the marriage amendment.
Sure.
Like, they literally ran the campaign for 9 months to pass the marriage amendment, and then act like we're shocked when we propose the marriage amendment that's the exact same language that we said we were going to run on. Like, but that's 2 days of session.
Right. But it grabs.
Oh yeah, but it's
3
all the
months of
press.
headlines.
It's
Yeah.
all the headlines, and Senate's got to do it one day. The House got to do it another. Then it's got to go to the governor, and they won't, not constitutional amendments, but bills, go to the governor. He's got 10 days to get headlines out of it before he vetoes it or signs it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it gets vetoed. It's got to come back. That's another headline story.
Right.
But they're all foregone conclusions. If we voted with enough votes to override the veto originally, yes, they're going to write 2 weeks of stories about coming back, but it's not really a story.
Right.
The people who voted for it once are going to vote for it again,
Sure,
and
Yeah.
get ready, kind of things. But it is a very small portion of what we deal with day to day, or what we do. It's a lot more technical now. It depends on, but they leak. It depends on what you call, is tax policy a social issue?
Right.
Right.
Those kind of things. Now, we'll spend a lot more time on that. Is the budget a social issue? Well, it depends.
Right.
If there's one line in it giving money to a pregnancy center, does that now make the whole thing the social thing? Because or when the Democrats had it and there's one line in it funding Planned Parenthood, is the whole budget a social issue now? Because I can tell you, when the budget hits Florida, it's all they're going to talk about.
Yeah.
4,000-page bill, one line.
Yeah.
And so it is, but actually, I'll say this: the most disruptive thing in the General Assembly isn't even social issues; it's animal bills.
Really?
You drop a bill about animals. I think the last one, the puppy mill bill, came up. I think I was averaging 12,000 emails a day. I think you couldn't even walk between offices for the people who showed up. And every disabled animal in the state of North Carolina made a pilgrimage to the General Assembly. So you know it is. Like, housekeeping, let's just say housekeeping was running all day long.
Oh my God.
And I said this with whatever else. I love my pet. I support that. We don't want animals mistreated. We don't want whatever else. We don't want them genetically manipulated through puppy mills and those kind of things. But you would think there's a lot of other issues that have many more issues than when North Carolina's running a bill about chaining dogs or puppy mills, that I'm getting 30 emails a day from Australia about North Carolina coming in. And that was one of the amazing shocking things to me, is how much animal issues
move the
shut
needle.
down
Yeah.
everything.
So the puppy mill bill, give us a brief synopsis of
So
what that was going to entail.
It would
or what that entails.
it would require breeders to register
Uh-huh.
and register how many litters per animal they had and do those kind of things because there are some horrific conditions where they're
100%
putting
there
animals through,
Yeah.
2 and 3 litters a year and,
Right.
destroying them and those kind of things. And their poor genetics and all these kind of things
Yeah.
and inbreeding and those. It would basically eliminate that process. Require if you sold puppies, you'd have to register as a breeder. Wasn't expensive. I think it was like a $15 registration, but we knew who was doing it, and you had to have the license to be able to do it.
Right.
You had to report the animals that you were doing. Generally, legitimate breeders very much support.
That was my next question. Who were you getting the emails from? People in opposition or support?
Yeah, it's both in support and opposition, but it's predominantly, you get a lot more local kind of things of like, government has no business in my business.
Oh, sure.
You
Yeah,
those kind of things. But you're getting PETA and all the others that you must save all the animals.
Sure.
And if it doesn't make it through, how dare you, you evil son of a gun.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what covered it. But that was the whole
Interesting.
concept
Wow.
of animal bills and so, we got these unofficial, unwritten, not even really rules. Like, unless you plan to disrupt everything, don't drop an animal bill. Like, and if you're going to drop an animal bill, let all your colleagues know.
Right.
So that anybody trying to put anything else in on that day, don't do it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But that goes with the whole thing. I've said it 1,000 times. People care more about their animals than they do their kids.
Dude,
It's
for real.
insane. People get
It is. Yeah.
people get crazy about stuff like that.
And I love my animals. I've got a lot of exotic animals. But man,
Would the Mamba make a pilgrimage to Raleigh?
I don't
in
think
support
so.
of an
I don't
exotic
think
animal
so.
bill?
No, I don't think so. That Mamba doesn't make a pilgrimage out of her enclosure most
Right,
days
right.
because it's a Mamba. So
If it does, it's a bad day.
yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
bad
it
day.
is.
It's a bad day. Well, I know there's been a lot going on, so kind of transition into that because I'm sure we could talk forever because I am genuinely curious. So I know we just got legalized sports gambling, and wasn't there one other thing that went into effect?
There's been several that came in, but
Right.
sports gambling is kind of the
Right.
lead. We kind of ended in major conflicts about casinos and the video lottery. Neither one of those ultimately moved. Had a really contentious fight over medical marijuana that ultimately didn't move in the long session. We suspect all those will be brought up in the short session, but the plan for the short session is to be short.
Right.
That's
Sure,
coming in.
sure.
And so historically, the 7 short sessions I've been through, a whole lot of things just don't get done
Right.
under the tenure of, we'll be back in January.
Right. Gotcha.
If we want to do this, we can do it in January.
So what was the support? Just out of curiosity, because I know sports gambling is one of the, as a person that kind of halfway falls, and I've asked you about this before. But as a person who halfway follows some of that, I know it's a nationwide thing it's 25, 30 states now, something like that. Was that something that was put? Was that something? Why? How do you think that was able to be passed
Well,
through?
what you've got is, I'm going to say about 4 years ago, you have got the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the federal gambling ban. That's what coming in. So it wasn't allowed, with the exception of how the feds had kind of written it for Nevada and
Right.
and tribal areas.
Right.
It was banned federally. And so since that ban, a lot of states have legalized sports gambling. I'm shocked at, if you haven't watched TV in the last month, then you've missed all the different entities that for $5 I'm giving you $2.50 and whatever else just to get you to play.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Every other
ESPN's now running its own gambling.
Yeah.
Oh my
FanDuel's running
gosh.
its own
Yeah, I know
gambling.
FanDuel was.
All these different things are running their own. Obviously, all the teams in North Carolina were highly supportive of that. And so the challenge we've got as General Assembly is this is one of those that nobody winds up on the pure side of.
For sure.
That because people that support the gambling try to claim there's no social issues, there's no
Right.
problems, there's no people should just be
Yeah.
able to spend their money however they want to. And then the other gambling sitting there, while we're running the lottery every day but Thursday
Yeah.
and maybe Sunday in the state, it says you can vote on ping pong, you can bet on ping pong balls, but not on the tennis tournament. That's what coming, and that's just hypocrisy.
It is, yeah.
That was
so
my
good.
whole angle at it. Is I mean, like in my view, a state lottery is no more than a tax on poor people.
And it's interesting to go through the shenanigans that passed the state lottery.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, that
this
was a
was
lot of
what it
what
did.
changed the ruling class. And
In the Senate in North Carolina, there were two legislators. One lived here and one on the coast that were Republicans that were voting against it, and they didn't have the votes to pass it, so they adjourned session. And John Garwood that lived here went into surgery. That's what coming in, and Harry Brown left the country on his honeymoon. Well, Bass Knight found out they'd left, called the Senate back into session the next day, and voted the lottery,
Oh, wow.
which tied with the two of them gone. Bev Perdue was lieutenant governor, but no one had told her it had tied, that they needed her. And no one had asked her where she supported, so she froze for 15 minutes. And literally, there's video of it. The leaders of the Senate literally run up to the dais and are standing beside her, telling her she has to vote yes to pass this. And so she votes to break the tie, which put the lottery in the state of North Carolina because all these rules about when you can call people in and everything else. And Harry didn't have to be notified because he was out of the country. And Senator Garwood didn't matter because he was,
insert.
yeah.
Jeez.
And then Mark Bass Knight ends up going to federal prison, right?
Jim Black went to
Jim
federal,
Black, that's
went to
right,
federal
that's
prison.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what covered in the Speaker of the House.
Because he was tied to the company that was hired to run the lottery, right? Yeah.
That's
in
what
a
coming in.
bank.
And he was taking cash in the IHOP bathroom and writing undated checks to all the members because they couldn't receive money from PACs. So he was just having the PACs give him undated
wow.
checks so he could hand them out and tell them when they could put the date on them.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so there was a lot kind of
That
went
was a
on through
lot
that.
of the
Yeah.
way this state ran under the 150 years worth of Democrats, though. That was a lot of that back in the day.
And so, you know, it's been gambling's been a real fight and a real challenge for us.
Yeah.
But
So did anything else? So obviously we've got the sports books, the electronic sports books on your phone and all that stuff. Physical, like locations, are allowed in stadiums now, or
as part, I think that's as part of the sports gambling. So I don't think the Hurricanes stadium can because it's also NC State's stadium.
right.
That's what coming in. But the simple answer is the Carolina Panthers will be able to put in a little thing with monitors where you can bet
betting,
while you're at the game.
Did you see the guy that bet on a streaker at the Super Bowl?
Yes.
I think he put 50 grand on it.
Yeah, and then
And then he was the streaker.
Yeah.
Won like $325,000. It was like a $1,000 fine or something.
That is a brilliant.
Trying to figure out what net legal bills is.
Dude, that's hilarious.
So was the marijuana thing tied up in this whole gambling thing,
It
or
was
separate? Or?
Marijuana's similarly interesting. So the bill is a medical marijuana bill, and it identified 4 or 5 conditions that you could be prescribed marijuana for and utilize. And on its face, actually, I'm not sure there's a lot of opposition to that.
Right.
You know, I went through my mom's cancer and whatever else, and they're giving her, you know, high-end Oxycontins to take every
opioids, yeah.
hour, the whatever else. I am positive that the effects on that are not less than the effects of marijuana if it would have helped. I don't have any
Absolutely.
clue.
Absolutely.
But it couldn't have been more than
Right.
the mind-altering medications
Right.
they were giving her and those kind of things, because it's what we have to treat pain.
Yeah.
But again, even a medical marijuana bill is not about medical marijuana.
Right.
Sure.
Everyone who's pushing for medical marijuana is pushing for legalization.
Recreational. Yeah.
The people that are coming out opposed to medical marijuana, for the most part, are not opposed to medical marijuana.
They're opposed for
They're
recreational.
opposed to legalized marijuana in the state of North Carolina, and they think this is the stepping stone that gets you there.
Right.
So it's a lot of one of those things where the argument is not often about the bill itself.
Right.
And some of the things that really challenged me with that bill for the medical marijuana was that we didn't just approve those 5 conditions. We approved a board that could add new conditions, kind of things. And I think that is a stepping stone.
Sure.
That's
It
what
is.
coming in. So if you wanted a medical marijuana bill to support of those kind of things, then go back to the legislature every time and add a condition. Or if you want to run legalized marijuana, I'll be a no vote, but go through the whole legislature and run legalized marijuana, and we'll see
Yeah.
where it comes out.
See, that's what I wish they would do, is just because it's a facade. They're hiding behind this medical facade. It just gets abused. And for the record, I don't smoke marijuana. I'm pro legalization, but I don't use it. But I mean, with all the Delta 8 and all the gummies and everything that we have now, we may as well just do it.
Well, you see it being prepared for, that's for sure.
Yeah, you
Evidenced
do.
by the 5 giant LED supposed tobacco stores that we now have in the 2 counties.
Well,
That could be seen from space, by the way, Ralph. I don't know if you're aware of that.
and I will say this:
They can't.
Delta 8 and Creighton or whatever,
Kratom, yeah.
Yeah.
that's whatever else. That is, I don't care what I think about marijuana or whatever. It should be
It's a
legal or
different
whatever
beast.
else.
That's a
That
different
stuff is a bigger problem.
100%.
And for whatever reason, it's legal. That's what coming in. There's shops downtown that sell it. That's what coming in. And when I taught in the prison, I've talked to inmates that are terrified by that
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, Kratom is a hardcore
When you
now.
go back to a few iterations ago, they keep about every year they will change the chemical makeup of it.
Right. That way
So
it can be.
that
yeah.
way we can ban the chemical makeup, but we're not banning the one that's coming out.
Right.
So they keep selling it and putting it in a different package and trying to get local law enforcement. Was this the 2003 version or the 2004
Right.
version
Right.
in the same package? It's not an easy process. And it's not like they've just got a drop-in test for which kratom
Which-
it
yeah,
is.
Exactly.
Sure.
But when we had the people literally in Florida eating each other's faces and the bath salts
bath
and
salts, yeah.
all those kind of things, kratom was involved in that as well.
Kratom's a hardcore drug. It's no joke. Now, I think in very small doses, it's probably, and I think it's used in traditional medicine in some South America or somewhere like that, I believe. I don't know a whole lot about it, just very, very minimal. But I know in the concentrations that you can get it in now is quite dangerous, is what I've been told, at least.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
And, and natural or whatever else, they can
Right.
claim it, whatever else. Look, there's people who smoke bat poop.
sure.
That's what coming in. Might be as natural as it get, but it has the effect it has.
Well, I mean, it's no secret that I used to smoke weed. Like, everybody knows that knows me. And back then, like, I was partaking in like some really high quality hydroponic stuff. Nothing like this Delta 8 stuff.
No.
I never ever remember anyone smoking a bowl and freaking out and going to the ER like
know.
they do now on these Delta 8 gummies and stuff. Like, it is wild.
Well, and I also
Does your
think,
sister see a lot of that?
I don't know. I need to ask
Yeah,
her.
you need to ask her
Yeah,
that.
I don't
well,
know.
Ask her that.
and the modern problem we have with drug abuse and narcotics
Yeah,
is not whether someone smoked a joint or marijuana.
right.
It's whether or not it was dusted with fentanyl.
Fentanyl. That's a huge
That's what
problem.
covered in for what these people are taking.
Do you think that would sway any of your Republican colleagues?
What?
Just simply to have it under the auspices
regulation.
under the regulation of the state
For
those reasons.
maybe there's all kinds of fights then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many regulating agents. There's fights right now over
Right.
whether it should be 10, whether
It's
it should
never
be
just as easy,
$100,000
yeah.
a year,
Right.
whether it should those kind of things. I think if you could ever convince the majority of legislators that this was about medical marijuana and a controlled system existed so that this was for people with severe medical conditions, yes, I think that would pass.
Let me ask you this, because we talked about this the last time you were on. We went pretty deep into it then. But, it got me thinking afterwards, and I don't believe I asked this question the last time, but what about, North Carolina's a little bit unique in the way it runs its alcohol sales system, that it's all sold by the state. Would there be, in your eyes, any benefit to making marijuana part of the ABC board and being sold by the state?
The interesting thing is you cannot.
Really?
Yep. There is only one product that is controlled by the state and is exempt from interstate commerce, and that is alcohol. And that's because the right to sell alcohol is the only product given by the U.S. Constitution.
I did not know that.
The United States, in Prohibition, passed a constitutional amendment banning the sale of alcohol. Alcohol was not allowed to be sold in the United States under our government. When we repealed that, you can't just repeal an amendment. They passed a separate constitutional amendment that granted to the states the right to control the sale of alcohol.
Okay.
There is no constitutional amendment granting to the states the right to control the sale of marijuana.
Right. Okay.
That's coming in. It's under federal regulation. And so we can't...
Other than to ban it completely,
Right.
or...
If they passed a constitutional amendment to ban it and then granted that to the states, then we could do it exactly like we do alcohol. But alcohol is 100% unique.
Interesting.
In that it has a constitutional authority to sell.
Yeah.
By the state. And that's why we can say grocery stores can't sell it in North Carolina, even though it's a legal product. You can't say that with anything else.
Right. Interesting.
That's the coming in. It's either you can say nothing can be sold, nobody can sell it, but the state could never claim for itself the right to regulate it.
So let's think about that. So if you were to, so would I be fair to say that like the ABC, because I used to think differently about the whole ABC thing and the way it's set up in North Carolina, but I also see the big fat check that comes into the town from the alcohol store out there, and that's a lot of money.
It is.
It's a lot of money.
Yep.
And which makes me kind of a bigger fan of that whole thing, is you're controlling the sale and then putting the money back into the system.
As a result of North Carolina's ABC system, we have one of the lowest per person consumptions in the United States and one of the highest profits per consumption in the United States.
That's interesting.
Our system, the way it's worked, the size of our state, more money is made off of it and less of it is sold because of our system. Now, depending on where you feel in that spectrum of how much should be sold or whatever else, it's a good system, it's a bad system, it's not prohibition, those kind of things. Golf course ain't making all the money off of it. You know, we saw that in Mitchell County. So,
oh, yeah, for sure.
And so it's really kind of that back and forth of where it's allowed and what it's doing.
Is there opposition to that system in Raleigh?
Oh, yeah. There are distributors, restaurants, grocery stores, retailers would all like to be out of that system and be in charge of it. Let me give you, these numbers are a little dated. Okay. They're probably 8 or 9 years ago. The number one seller in the ABC system was Aristocrat vodka. Sure. I will not say a high quality volume. But the state paid the company 69 cents a fifth for Aristocrat vodka. That's becoming. We even had, when they were doing this brine, the state even looked at the concept of contracting with them to put it on the roads.
Yeah.
Instead of the brine mixture.
I remember that,
because it would work in a similar.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
69 cents a fifth is what the state pays for.
Yeah.
That's what you're drinking, folks.
At the time, and I don't
Road
know.
brine.
Right. And I don't know what it turned into now, but at the time, We were selling it for $6.99 a fifth in the ABC store.
Pretty good profit.
Every penny from 69 cents to $6.99 was being made by a government entity in some level. Local governments, sheriff's departments, there's a percentage held out for law enforcement, whatever else. And then the bars are turning around and selling it for $7 a shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's coming in. That's a profit margin to everybody in the system. So if you're in that system, you really like that system.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, if you get rid of that system, if the state can get it for 69 cents a fifth, what can Walmart get it for?
Sure.
That's what's coming in. And regardless of how I feel about the sale of alcohol or anything else, $3 a fifth is a social problem.
Yeah.
Yes,
that
it is.
fully exists and will cost us more. Look, if Walmart starts selling Grey Goose or whatever tomorrow, I don't even know what the top brands are. Yeah. Like, there's limited social issues to that. If they're selling Johnny Walker for $150 a fifth or whatever else it is, some people will use it. There'll be problems, but that's much less of a problem than if you had $3 a fifth, what my college friend called rock gut.
Yeah.
That's what covered in. And so even if you did and you took that away, how do you regulate that system to not collapse?
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of issues, but our ABC store has done incredibly
well.
Yeah.
Since it opened. I can tell you I don't see this all over the state, but we have no issues I'm aware of with underage purchases. We have no robberies, no hang-ups, nothing. Everybody ignores the ABC store. I still think we get more from Burnsville and Marion than we do from Spruce Pine. Because people go to the ABC store where they're
in
not
the
seen.
opposite town.
That's hilarious.
Burnsville's running. I'll still tell you, Burnsville passed an ABC because we had one. And then they wasn't about to let
all that walk out of
That's
town.
hard representing 9 counties, but let's be honest. Once one's got something, everybody wants it.
Exactly.
But alcohol's very interesting politically. Yeah. Has very interesting origins. We know here, and I can tell you, seeing Burnsville too, there's no election like an alcohol election.
Oh my God.
Real.
We can think we had a crazy town election, and we did.
Yeah.
But I remember when all these stores started this petition.
Yeah.
And got 40% of the names before the election started. And almost 900 people voted at town hall in one day. And people wasn't speaking to each other, and people wasn't.
Oh, it was bad. Yeah. There's a lot of people who have had to eat crow and have some apologies.
And the same way, the ones that want to legalize promised was getting an Applebee's and was getting
I know.
all these other kind of major stores were going to open up. None of that
Look
came.
at us.
Yeah.
Everybody was going to complain that, we're going to have all these DUIs and all these other kind of things. Matter of fact, DUIs went down. I can always tell you there's a reason for that. When the golf course was the only place selling, DUIs were easy.
Yeah.
You sit out there next to the steakhouse and you're waiting for somebody to cross the yellow line because they're all going to the same place.
Right.
And then when you pass sales all over the county, like they're all going 12 different directions. Right. You can't just sit there and, shoot fish in a barrel all day long and catch DUI.
Yeah.
Not that, our law enforcement's doing a bad job. I don't mean that at all. Sure. But there's 2 cars on the road.
Yeah.
Right. The truth.
Well, and going back to marijuana, I would say alcohol is, as a substance itself with its social ramifications, is far more destructive than marijuana is.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge I have to the marijuana substance, I have seen too many people with addiction and mental health challenges who, and actually was sitting next to somebody who was dealing with this with a doctor, who don't believe it's a narcotic.
Oh, sure.
And when they utilize marijuana, they go through all their withdrawal symptoms again.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing is starting.
Yeah.
And its interaction with ADHD drugs and those kind of things that
well, and it's
a
problem. It's a problem with youth too. Like I'm a firm believer that early marijuana usage can permanently alter brain chemistry.
It does. it can set you in a state of arrested development. It can arrest the development of your brain. I mean, there's a lot of definitely a lot of challenges there. I totally agree. My point is, I guess they're gonna do it, and they're gonna drink. Between the two, I see alcohol as far less destructive.
Yeah.
Now, to your point, I agree with you completely.
The other thing is that we've been briefed on in others. Marijuana use among youth is now almost never what we believed was marijuana use.
Oh, 100%.
It is no longer rolling up
Right.
a joint
Right.
and kids smoking it.
It's
Almost does not exist anymore. It's these little cartridges that fits in a vape.
It's vapes. Yeah.
That may have no odor tied to them. It's a pack of gummy bears that parents have no idea their kid's not eating gummy bears unless somebody else got into them. That's what's coming in. It's candy, it's food products, it's those kind of things. The use of marijuana, I guess that makes me the old fogey. I still think of the people in the residence halls with downy, things trying to blow through them, trying to be like.
That worked.
Yeah, because like when I was the RA or the hall director, and there's no laundry in my building, yet I've got the sudden scent of fabric softener walking down.
Skunk and fabric softener.
Had no idea what that might have been. This is coming in. So, but that generation is kind of past.
Oh, now and it's concentrates, it's oils, it's what are the dab rigs?
Dabs, yeah.
I mean, that stuff is.
And you used to say, legitimately, that people couldn't overdose on marijuana. That's not true anymore.
Not true.
Like you will smoking it. Apparently, people will pass out before they reach an overdose.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You'll lose consciousness.
Yeah.
But when you're ingesting it,
it's different.
In those type of things, and concentrations don't necessarily mean size. You could be taking something that you can now actually overdose on.
Yeah.
It's just a different concept. And
It is, and I guess my only rebuttal to that would be, I mean, you can overdose on alcohol, and there's got to be regulation. There's got to be
you can
regulation.
poison yourself on it.
Yeah, you absolutely can.
I've always thought, what if it was? Because I'll be honest with you, I was a marijuana user. I'll just go ahead and tell you, I will still use it on occasion now. I've never been a fan of those tinctures, all that dab rig crap, all that stuff.
See, I quit well before that became a
I don't
thing.
have a clue what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all of it's crazy. I mean, it really is. And another thing that I always hated, weed culture. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sucks.
Dude,
it sucks.
I know.
I don't like the stoner culture. Well, I never have.
We're not hippies.
Yeah, we're not hippies. That probably doesn't help. But I just think it's lame. Quite honestly, I think espousing laziness and being a burnout and all that stuff is stupid.
Yeah.
I've always thought what would be a good compromise is just to do flower. Just
legalize
marijuana,
actual
raw marijuana, and maybe certain, tinctures and stuff for medical purposes.
And we don't have, I will say this, we also don't have control on it.
Yeah.
But the tribe, the Koala Boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually seen their operation. Is now both medical and recreational use. I was shocked.
Yeah.
I'm talking greenhouses 2 football fields long with 12-foot plants growing in them that they are harvesting weekly.
Golly,
nice operation.
The money.
Yes, that's what come in. And
very state of the art.
Yes. And it's a whole horticulture program.
Yeah, sure.
That's what coming in. Now, do not step from, legal advice, do not step from one side of the Koala Boundary to the other.
Right.
That's what coming in, because
Sure.
now you've not only got state issues, you've got a federal crime because you crossed the border.
Oh, wow.
Between the boundary.
You trafficked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what coming in, but kind of like we had gambling.
Yeah.
To say we don't have gambling when we got 3 casinos sitting over in
Sure.
Murphy and those kind of things. And
So, you think there'll be any movement on the casino stuff at all?
Interesting enough, mentioning the Cherokee, the casinos also has an Indian war. So right now, the Cherokee can have casinos in their boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
The Catawbas came over from South Carolina and claimed that this area around Kings Mountain is their tribal lands, and they have opened a casino there. But the largest group of Native Americans in the state are the Lumbee. And because they are not a federally recognized tribe, now the Cherokee will tell me that they are not a tribe, they are a group of Native Americans.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's a very different concept.
Right.
But they're a state recognized tribe.
Okay.
But the state doesn't allow gambling, the feds allowed the gambling. And so the whole fight is over, do the Lumbees now get a casino or the opening of a casino? And that is a large conflict.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That's what we come again. And I think the Catawba's casino may actually get thrown out. Some war happened in the early 1800s. There's documents of where the Cherokee claimed they won the land that the Catawbas are trying to reclaim as whatever.
Yeah.
That Bureau of Indian Affairs can figure all that out.
Right.
Wow.
But now the Lumbee are the more interesting concept, because if we as a state allow it, then we could allow a state tribe to.
But that didn't pass in this past deal.
But most of your eastern legislators who support casinos aren't going to support casinos that don't grant one to the Lumbee.
Okay, I see.
That's what coming in.
So what part of the state are the Lumbee?
So they're predominantly eastern North Carolina, around Pembroke University.
All right, I got you.
Pembroke is a Native American, historically Native American institution that is predominantly made up of the Lumbee Indians.
Right.
And so it's, fortunately the states have never really got involved in this, but the Lumbee have become very politically active.
Well, especially now that you've passed the whole online sports gambling.
Oh, yeah.
And then now they're like, well,
Sorry.
where are we at? No, you're good.
Wow.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. God, that's a lot of moving pieces.
It is.
It always amazes me to ask you these questions just because you never know. It's like, oh, we only get the the 2 paragraphs. Let me tell you what the big contention is, and let me trash Ralph on the bottom here.
Right.
And then now you ask, and it's, oh, but wait, there's an entire textbook
What is that
of
called?
stuff that's behind
Is that called nuance?
That's called nuance. Yes,
And
it
then
is.
the other one I asked
Interesting.
in Rockingham, whatever else, Virginia came 4 miles over the line into Virginia and opened the major casino.
Yeah.
That's what's coming in. So now those that represent that area want to put a casino there to keep Virginia from getting all the money and them still having to deal with all the social issues. Like there's not a town and infrastructure in Virginia where the casino is. It's they drive across the line, they drive back home to Greensboro and those kind of things. And whatever social issues you've got is borne by the people around it. In some ways, Cherokee has it perfectly set up. You come there, you stay for a week, you leave.
Yeah.
They don't get, when I've walked through it on a couple of occasions for events and those kind of things, there aren't, and it's not unintentional, there are no Native Americans on the casino floor gambling.
Right.
That's what coming in.
No.
That would not be. So when you think about what the social ills are, Cherokee's not having to deal with them.
Right.
You come from Atlanta, lose all your money, and go back home, broke. You're broke at home.
Yeah.
That's what, those kind of things. So you don't deal with a lot of the social issues of casinos in Cherokee. And so now when you get to Rockingham, you get to the northern areas of Greensboro and everything else, there Virginia's taking all the money, but we've still got all the problems. And so it's that kind of territorial, those kind of things. Bristol, they were looking to put one in Bristol, which would be closer than.
So is Tennessee illegal?
No, Bristol's
Jam?
Virginia.
Oh, okay, yeah, Bristol, Virginia. Yeah,
So they would get everybody from Bristol, Tennessee, or Bristol, you know,
wow.
or from
The Tri-Cities.
yeah, the Tri-Cities,
yeah.
those kind of things.
and that's eventually supposed to be a Hard Rock casino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's all these areas, like the placement is not random.
No, it's
Let's
very
put it
planned.
here. It is very much. And so that's where you're getting some of these communities are demanding that they're not getting taken advantage of by policies in another state. But, you know, Cherokee's casinos in Murphy, not because of its location to Asheville, but its location to Atlanta and Knoxville. You know.
Yeah.
So it's always a bigger fight underneath them than it is just about casinos. And the bill really struggles to get through because it's not just about casinos or no casinos.
Do you represent Cherokee County?
No.
No.
I go. My district now goes from Canton in Haywood County to Sparta on the Virginia line.
Okay.
That's what coming in, and then goes to Lenore east.
Did you say 9 counties?
Yeah.
Okay.
9 counties.
Haywood, Madison, Yancey, Mitchell, Avery, Watauga, Allegheny, Ash, Caldwell.
Wow.
Wow.
I've had to get that to like the right.
I got you. Well, when you up for election next?
So I am running in November.
Okay.
Okay.
Do have an opponent from Avery County, Democrat from Avery County. Wasn't sure one of those existed. That's
who's
that?
Forgive me for not knowing that. I shouldn't have.
Yeah, that's.
But you weren't on the primary.
I wasn't on the primary
because you're not.
No other Republican was running.
I got you.
That's what coming in. So, we run every 2 years. There was a big push by the Democrats to contest every seat. And so I think in the entire General Assembly, they contested every one but one. Not necessarily a political strategy I would employ for the Republicans, because then you got a lot of people mad because they got no money and no support. And
kind of got a piecemeal it a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's what coming in. Go after the races you can and should win, and be optimistic. But you know, if it's there, they exist in the state too. If there's Mitchell Avery County districts, might not run a Democrat in those districts. Center of Charlotte, probably wasting their time putting a Republican on the ballot.
For sure, yeah.
Everybody has the right to run, but I'm talking about what you push.
Yeah. Is the Democratic Party pushing hard behind this guy? Doesn't seem like it because I haven't heard.
They pushed hard to get somebody on the ballot.
Right. Gotcha. Who is it?
Frank Hughes.
Frank Hughes.
I believe it is completely. He is called the top 10 Republicans I knew in Avery County. 2 of them identified his grandfather. None knew him.
Okay.
His dad had moved to Greensboro and moved back, and that's really all I know about him at this point. I'm assuming campaign ads will start soon.
Right.
You know, so I get to know my opponent as you get to know your choice for candidate.
Right. I got you.
So,
well, let's talk a little bit about the state races in general. So, what's your thoughts on lieutenant governor?
So, lieutenant governor right now is in a primary.
Yeah,
we're going to vote again in a couple of weeks with 17 days early voting again and absentee ballots and everything else.
So, what was it too close to?
So, there's thresholds you have to meet to get over. So, in a 1-seat race running just for lieutenant governor, it's 30%. So if you don't get over 30%, the second place candidate can call for runoff, no matter how close it is.
Gotcha.
Like with our county commissioners, because there's 3 seats, that number dropped to like 15%. And so even though there was a really close race for county commissioner, there's no runoff because both candidates got over 15% of the vote.
Right.
So you can't call for a runoff. Hal Weatherman and Jim O'Neill are running in that race. Jim O'Neill was a DA from state. Hal Weatherman worked for Dan Forrest, was his chief of staff and campaign manager for his time there. Came over and worked for Madison Cawthorn after Dan had lost for a little while, and has really been kind of involved in all that. And he's somebody I'll support in the runoff. But after this primary, this is one of the most interesting primaries I've ever seen.
Okay.
I was most disappointed in that people had no idea who they were voting for council of state seats.
Yeah.
That's what coming in. The middle of the ballot, That's what coming in. Our state superintendent was defeated in a primary, and nobody saw it coming.
I saw that. And she don't even have children. She's a homeschool.
The lady that defeated her. Yeah. But I mean, the lady who made the decision to award Mitchell County the money for its middle school, that's coming in when we pushed all those funds, and nobody knew who she was. Like may not have run the campaign or whatever else she needed to, because she didn't see it as a legitimate opponent. But they hit her with an ad. They hit the superintendent with an ad about 2 weeks out that said she was hiring pedophiles as teachers.
Oh my gosh!
Now, the truth is, and you may know this intuitively, the state superintendent has nothing to do with who's hired as a teacher in any school system in North Carolina. That's what's coming in. She doesn't even get to make the policy.
Right.
Like, she doesn't even have that authority. Like, maybe a local school board's in trouble, maybe, whatever else, but state superintendent has nothing to do with it. And how do you respond? But how do you respond to that politically? No, I didn't.
Right. Right.
And when nobody knows, and like lieutenant governor, you've got top candidates in that race were raising $300,000. Mm-hmm. To be heard in North Carolina is probably $3 million.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you, coming into the general election, you're not going to be heard.
Yeah.
I just read an article last week that is showing for president, governor, and attorney general, the spend in North Carolina is expected to be $800 million.
Good.
Jeez.
By comparison, that is roughly close to what it cost George W. Bush to run his presidential campaign.
That is insane.
When Pat McCrory won his first race, he broke the record in North Carolina by spending $15 million on a governor's race. And now we're talking $800 million.
Jeez.
We'll be spending that race. If you're running for Secretary of State, now what are you going to do with $3 million that's going to get people to know who you are? There's no room left in the mailbox. There's nothing left on TV.
I tell you what they can do, Ralph. Come on, Hollercast, baby.
Come on, small town America podcast.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Jeez, that's the first time I've missaid it. I can't believe. Yes, come on, small town America.
So
podcast.
Are you going to bleep that out, or is they going to say Holocaust across the bottom?
No.
It's going to say Holocaust.
Yeah, that is true.
It will.
We told everybody why we had to change the name, but I would love to have it be a tool, honestly and sincerely. I would.
Yeah. Well, I reached out to Mark Robinson's campaign manager through email. I know they're probably not watching, but if you are, please reach out. We would love to have you on the show.
And we would love to.
It's been a long, I say this, and I've got a lot of friends and colleagues that have run for statewide office. Been a long time since I've been excited about anybody like I am Mark Robinson.
He's a firebrand for sure.
He is. And Dan Bishop. I served sitting next to Dan Bishop for Attorney General. Republicans have never held Attorney General in the state of North Carolina.
Really?
It's always been Democrat. And that's where Robinson's opponent's coming from, Josh Stein. And Dan Bishop is running against another former colleague of mine, Jeff Jackson. And if you haven't seen, go look him up on social media. I'm sure you'll be so pleased to know who Jeff Jackson is. That's coming in. And so, but that's going to be a big race as well.
You think Mark's got a good chance of winning?
I do. I've really never seen... Mark ran 4 years ago for lieutenant governor. He did a rally on the square in Burnsville. 4,000 people showed up in Burnsville.
Wow.
Now, I've never known anybody can turn out 4,000 people for anything in Burnsville. Even a Mountain Heritage game don't get to quite to 4,000.
No.
That's what coming in. It takes Mitchell fans to get them over there.
That's true.
Probably shouldn't have said that. Represent both counties, but that's what coming in. But the same may be true for me. But it was amazing. Like, I have never seen someone who can inspire people and they're excited to see on the local level. I mean, maybe if a presidential candidate came here, you'd see the same kind of thing. But barring that, he is an amazing individual. He's got an incredible story. He's not a politician. He was not created to fill out campaign finance reports and
see, I love that.
Those kind of things. He made the mistake of buying apparel at a sporting goods store, so they've accused him of buying his clothes with his campaign funds because he bought his Mark Robinson T-shirts. There's all kinds of things. He sold a car. Now they're attacking him, saying he didn't pay his taxes because the person who bought the car didn't pay the taxes after they, all this kind of stuff. And the stuff he's gone through that normal people have fought through. But somehow he's not the other one. He's running against Josh Stein, who's, the sophisticated attorney who's, played attorney general.
Yeah, it's a very diametric opposite sort of personality.
It seems to me like it parallels a lot with the national level stuff. The way that things are handled, like when Biden won. Oh, the adults are back in the room now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Truman and Shaman under pressure.
Minus the dementia issue.
Right.
The geriatrics are back in charge.
Can we not have somebody run for office in Washington that's under 80 years old? Would that not be just...
It would be awesome.
Wouldn't it be great?
But I think we've got a real chance, and we're seeing it locally too.
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself a question: who would run for office?
Well, that's I mean, look at the way that they're treated now. Right. Who would want to go through that?
I mean, you're going to have half, we'll say, balance it out all across the country, of the people whose job it is to destroy you.
Yeah.
For 2 years.
Yeah. In every way imaginable.
And for a young person, now you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that for the rest of your life.
Sure.
Now, if you're 65 and you got your pension and your Social Security all taken care of.
And no social media imprint.
Right.
Yeah, I would take a 65-year-old over a 80-year or 90-year-old.
I get it. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, you got your pension, you got your everything else. What are they going to do to you? Mm-hmm.
Right.
Those kind of things. So you run. But
sure.
Trying to recruit candidates for General Assembly who leaves their job to come do these kinds of things. That Congress is probably a little different because they pay $180,000 a year and give you $1 million, office expense to pay your flights back and forth.
Right.
But it's still, I know people who do it, who have children. Patrick McHenry used to be our congressman. Now he's got 3 small children. Could you imagine being in that environment? Like your kids don't get to watch TV at night? Because what they might be saying about mom or dad?
Right.
And so it's a real challenge for, how do you get
problem.
into it? And
it's a problem.
Look, why Republicans are in Congress right now are losing their majority because everybody's going home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not putting up with this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's so divisive, and you've seen it. You saw it with the election last year in town here and in the county. It's all that divisive politics that you've seen for a long time
since
on the
2014.
Yeah, 2014. It are all coming home to roost here in small towns.
We saw it in Spruce Pine. Go look at Newland and all the stuff going on up there now and whatever else.
Yeah.
They're getting to where you can't have town council meeting without law enforcement.
That's insane.
What's going on in Newland?
So you've got
tell us about our neighbors.
I'll let you look it up and those kind of things. That's coming in. There's a lot of very interesting YouTube videos as well where they're filming themselves outside and those kind of things. But it, there's all kinds of
stuff,
things,
and stuff.
Interesting.
Well,
beach. So,
well, what do you think? You think you're going to see a lot of mudslinging in this?
Oh, I think that and in some ways the intent of large campaigns. Mm-hmm. I think that you will hear so much that by the time October and November get here, nothing will matter.
Yeah.
Like I almost feel like, I remember when Bush ran the first, I worked on the second one when he ran on the first one. This DUI came out like the week before the election. And probably what led to Bush v. Gore and everything else because it was so close. But I really think campaigns are talking about blowing up the narrative to whatever comes out as the October surprise can't change anything anymore. There's such a small, undecided group of voters now, and it'll be even smaller in October. But it will take everything. And you reach these points, like starting in a campaign, like the things that move the needle are the positive message, who you are, what you stand for. That's how you build your base and build your support. But that stops pulling in people after a point.
Yeah.
And now you got to turn it to making sure that you hit the really raw emotions of how do you make them not vote for someone. Study after study they do of politics, you ask people what they remember from ads, they remember the negatives.
Yeah.
They can't tell you about the positives.
I just think that's humans in general that are like that, like with everything.
Right. But you also are going to reach a point when you do enough of that it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, as much as I support Trump, any other politician in the history of the universe that was hit with some of the things he hit would have been gone.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Good, bad, or indifferent. This would come again. It would have been over.
Yeah.
People have been falsely accused of things and been done in politics. But they have literally attacked him so much during his time that there's no effective attack on Donald Trump.
I would argue that it has the opposite effect.
Yeah, you may swing the
made him a
pendulum
martyr.
all the way to the point.
Yeah, they've made him a martyr.
Look, it doesn't, I'll say that, then this is where I suppose, like, it just doesn't make sense. 6, 8 states all starting the same kind of criminal charges, civil charges, all at the same time.
Oh, it
That's
makes
what coming
sense.
in. 3 are trying to get him
makes
off the
perfect
ballot.
sense.
Those kind of things. Yeah. The only thing that adds up is a political narrative, not a legal narrative.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what coming in. When the penalty in New York, other than the money, that's because he's a billionaire, but is you can't do business in New York. Right. Now, where have you ever seen a consequence to anyone of being? Now, maybe if you go back 75 years, when the judge says, you don't come back to Mitchell County.
Right.
Right. Don't let me catch you in the county lines again. But we have moved away from that as a society.
Yeah.
Well, we thought we had.
Right.
Do you think there's danger in that? I mean, obviously the argument is that that's Banana Republic type behavior.
It is.
What do you think that? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
The question I always have is, where does this division go? Because there's nothing about this division that's slowing down.
No.
Making people more hospitable to each other.
No.
Those type of things. We've been here before as a country. We split over issues to the point we tried to form 2 separate countries and went to war.
Yep.
Now, I don't think it's the same path never happens twice.
Right.
But what happens when we become a country where the red states are red states and the blue states are blue states and there's no in between?
We're headed there very quickly.
We're coming in. When I can tell you how many red votes you've got in every bill in Congress, I can tell you how many blue votes you got on every bill in Congress, because there's no in between anymore.
Right.
How many elections does one party take losing every election to the other party because there are no undecideds?
Yeah.
If you can win by 1 vote, you can be president because nobody else is changing their mind. It's a real challenge to where do we become as a country. And even things that I never thought we'd see, like what news you watch, there aren't people who watch one show on MSNBC and another show on Fox News, even though Fox has kind of fallen out of favor. I'm just saying, like nobody's switching between the shows.
No, and it's true. Even it's gone farther now from the media you consume shaping your narrative and worldview. The media you consume now shapes your reality.
Yep. And there's no potential for it changing as AI determines what your eyeballs stay on.
Yeah.
They're going to feed you more of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's coming in. Like if I pick up my son's phone, we may have the same YouTube, But his videos I've never seen before,
Yep.
and my videos he's never seen before.
Yep.
That's what coming. And there's some parental controls in that, but
Sure.
I suspect my wife doesn't watch them. But even if it was mine and my wife's, there would be no cross pollination because it finds what I want to watch and what they want to watch, and it feeds that to you.
Well, I think that's a lot of what's led us to such a divisive place because social media has put us in echo chambers based on our opinions, what we associate with online, what we associate online, what we do online. Take for instance a good example of this is like the police problem. Okay, policing problems, challenges with police. People who are have a proclivity towards like the BLM movement and the ACAB movement or whatever. They see a video online of a police beating the crap out of somebody, a police officer beating the crap out of somebody. They get mad. They comment on it. Well, the algorithm's like, oh, that's a lot of engagement. They must really like this content. So they keep feeding them a constant stream of police beating the crap out of people. And that shapes their reality. So we're in a place now to where the two camps don't even live on the same planet anymore.
So the funniest thing I've determined about social media is the real fallacy is when we type something, when did we suddenly start thinking we were changing someone's mind?
We don't. Yeah, exactly.
We know the outcome doesn't happen.
No.
But the thought that goes through people's minds, oh, they're wrong about this. I must explain to them how they're wrong, is ineffective on any social media platform.
Sure.
Like, show me the one comment that said, boy, I really didn't know that. I guess you're right.
Right. Well, and here's the other thing, too. This is what always kills me, is there's facts that support both sides.
I know. Yeah.
How is that even? You can't even have facts that aren't. There's always something that will support either side of that.
Yeah, and that's what keeps us in our bubble of confirmation bias.
Sure. Do you think it's possible to be a bipartisan politician now?
No.
In other words, I mean, like, not that you would be an independent, but is it possible to have a reputation as somebody who works across the aisle?
I will tell you that we just saw in the Senate multiple House seats, multiple Senate seats. For example, in the Democrat Party, for people, because we're in charge now. I'm not saying this wouldn't happen if they were in charge. Right. But Mike Woodard in Durham crossed over and voted with us on the budget. He just lost his race. That's for coming in for nothing more. Actually, the most extreme example I will tell you is when we started this session, we didn't have supermajorities last January. Trish Cotham voted with us on the eliminate pistol purchase permits. They attacked her so mercilessly that she walked in the Speaker's office and said, I'm going to join you in the Republican Party.
Wow.
That's what coming. They threatened her life. They threatened her family. They threatened everything else. And so she joined the Republican Party and gave us a supermajority.
Wow.
So we could override the governor. This election last month, her mother was defeated on Charlotte City Council, who had been the high vote getter for multiple elections, because her daughter switched parties.
Jeez.
Nothing as to what she did.
Right.
Note that she's never been a loyal Democrat to their party and voted for them. Her daughter in the General Assembly switched parties, and it defeated her for the Charlotte City Council seat. There is nothing about the electorate, even though unaffiliateds are and becoming the largest party in North Carolina.
That's me, yeah.
Unaffiliateds are number one, Democrats are number two, Republicans are number three. Republicans will soon pass Democrats because of the numbers Democrats are losing.
Yeah.
But unaffiliates are gaining, and Republicans, depending on the month, are either staying even or losing a few. And Democrats are losing large numbers every month. So we are in many counties, we are across the state. Unaffiliated will be the number one party. But unaffiliated doesn't mean undecided.
Sure.
That's what
Absolutely.
coming in.
It's not true independence.
Yeah.
The unaffiliated still pick
Yeah.
between the two party candidates.
Yeah.
they're not looking for someone, when you study them and those kind of things, they're not looking for someone that's not conservative or not liberal or not Republican or not. They're just like the party people. They're leaning heavy towards one of the others.
Side. Yeah.
They just don't like the infrastructure. But they're still evaluating their candidates as red or blue.
Yeah.
That's coming in. And as long as voters are evaluating their candidates as red and blue, you're never going to get.
Do you have friendly relationships with Democrats?
So I have a lot of close relationships with older Democrats in the Senate. Dan Blue, who's the minority leader, I consider a very close friend. Toby Fitch left a few years, close friend. Don Davis in Congress has been a close friend of mine. And I've had the opportunity to work with them. I have long conversations with them. Those kind of things. We don't really do the dinners anymore. I was close to Mike Woodard. Those kind of things. 6 years, 8 years, the new group that has come in,
The progressives.
I have no relationship with whatsoever. There's no, we've talked, we have conversations about bills, but those are formal. Here's my desk. You sit on this side, I'll sit on this side. We'll discuss the bill and then we'll move on. Like, I don't have conversations about their kids and their schools and their those kind of things, and they don't ask about mine. They're, I feel a hatred.
Really?
When it's
that's where I was going for.
I had one of the members. I won't mention who she was, but 2 years ago, when I had COVID, I was one of the first ones to get COVID in the General Assembly, and I'd been in town, and on Sunday night I go home because my test results came in and said you were positive, so they said you got to quarantine. I got to go home. Quarantine was horrible. It was early quarantine.
Yeah.
This member, Senator, found a picture of me from 3 weeks ago where my mask is half off and posted on social media that I was sitting in the chamber infecting people.
I remember that.
With COVID because she had heard I was positive, and she was telling them I'm in the chamber. That time when I'm here in Spruce Pine, I've got the News and Observer reporters defending me.
Yeah.
It's a bad day when the News and Observer.
Yeah, when the Raleigh News and Observer comes
defending me, and he's coming up and saying,
hell has frozen over.
He is not in the chamber.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what you're saying, but it's like a 3-week-old picture to, try to portray you like that. And that's not, your bill's bad. This is a horrible idea.
Attacks.
Right. This was about me and that I was trying to kill people.
Yeah.
By spreading them this horrible disease.
Well, and it got ugly. I remember my father came and sat with you when they decided to Reverend Barber decided to visit the Episcopal Church right across from your house.
Yeah,
completely at random.
Right. Yeah, that was.
It was completely random.
That's what coming in, and I send my kids to stay with their sister in Burnsville and those kind of things, and it's Reverend Barber ain't coming to Mitchell County on a professional tour.
Yeah.
That's
so what happened to him? Did he fade into the?
So he took over a national organization called the Poor People's Campaign, and so he left North Carolina. He was a competitor for heading the NAACP and those kind of things, but I think now he's more of a national figure that does a few limited things around the country and comes back to North Carolina once a year for some sort of protest.
Yeah.
That's nowhere near the magnitude his protests were on the Moral Mondays.
Right.
But, I mean, we now have, you go in the General Assembly, you now have to walk through a metal detector. And that came 100% out of the Moral Monday movement. And the people who volunteered to be arrested. They weren't armbands that said arrest. That's what coming in. And when the police would finally say everyone that doesn't clear the building will be arrested, they would line up with their armbands on to be arrested. Like they came there to be arrested. They go through those book bags and they found pipes and wrenches and knives and everything else that were part of that.
Wow.
That's what coming in. So now we used to have 8 entrances into the building. Anybody from the public at any time could walk into the building. There was security in the building, but now everybody's got to go through except the members have to go through one narrow metal detector. That's what coming in every day. You go between buildings. You got to go through this metal detector, come out, come back. You got to go through this metal detector. That's what coming in, and it's locked down buildings now. And that's where we've come to.
Such a sad state of
with what we
affairs.
thought was, we stood up and said, this is the people's house.
Yeah.
People should have access, but we're not going to have you conked with a pipe on the back of the head.
Right.
And
How much do you think about threats of violence as compared to when you first came in?
It was worse in that kind of middle range of the Moral Mondays. It was worse when a gay group jerked open the doors of the house during session and running through cups of glitter on members.
That too, yeah.
You don't know what's in a cup.
No.
When it's coming at you.
No,
and
you
it's
don't.
not like you dodge it. That's what coming in. So those kind of things were things I was much more cognitive of. The interesting thing is I'm more concerned now in downtown Raleigh than I am at the General Assembly. The number of encounters I've had or have been around with mental health issues, with criminal issues, those kind of things. My encounters have been with mental health issues. People who are just, they don't want you to pass. They get in your face. They do those kind of things. I know people that have had them with criminal elements. That's what coming in. You walk in a Dollar General, except in urban areas, they don't call them Dollar Generals. I learned this. It's DGX.
DGX.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dollar Generals in urban areas are called
Interesting.
DGX.
Okay.
But they grow there too. Just turn some dirt in one place. But like, I go in there because it's closest to my apartment where I'm staying. Like, everything's locked up. Like, you want to go get Tide detergent. You got to get somebody to come unlock those things so they can hand you the Tide.
That's pitiful.
Now, that's a change I've seen in Raleigh
Yeah.
for 15 years. And I saw the George Floyd protests when they burned buildings and threw cocktails and tore down the Confederate monuments and all those kind of things. Dollar General still didn't have to lock everything up
Right.
then.
Yeah.
They might all get burned out, but
Right.
but now everything downtown is dirtier. I can hear, the police sirens all the time.
Oh, wow.
Those kind of things that are going off.
And Raleigh downtown was a nice place.
It was.
Yeah.
And there's still some good areas, but it's not
what it used to be.
It's not what it used to be. And the parks and the things they deal with and find there, and those kind of things, that actually makes me more. See, General Assembly has its own police force. So if they're protesting in downtown Raleigh, you have the Capitol Police, you have the Raleigh PD, and you have the General Assembly Police Force. And the rules of the General Assembly Police Force are different than the other two.
Okay.
Right.
Like if they say you're not coming in this building, they don't watch you jump over the fence and walk into the building. I'm not saying they couldn't get rushed, but they'll arrest everyone they can until they rush.
I started to say that earlier. Sounded, getting glitter thrown on you and jerking open the doors of the General Assembly. That kind of sounds like an insurrection to me.
It does. That is absolutely an insurrection.
Yeah.
But-
yeah. Yeah.
But I guess it has to align in such a way to occur on January 6th.
Yeah.
Right,
you know,
yes.
The dates don't line up.
Yeah. And involve the right characters.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And we'll say that.
I tend to recall, I believe it was over an abortion bill that the House got rushed in D.C. By people wielding weapons. I believe they had AR-15s. They had rifles. Wow. That sounds more like an insurrection to me.
They had it a couple of weeks ago with the Palestinian groups and flags. They had full flagpoles and
really
whatever else and rushed to one of the corridors and.
You don't hear about that.
No. But and you didn't hear a lot about when the More Money protesters surround the Senate chamber and are banging on the doors during session. And the lieutenant governor's having to call everybody to order and lock us down in place because there's 500 to 1,000 protesters outside those brass doors that they can't open them.
Yeah. And this was all over a supposed trans bathroom issue.
Well, it wasn't, but when I say it's all manufactured, like it didn't matter what the week was. It didn't matter who attended. It only mattered what color shirt they wore today. They'd all show up in pink shirts on abortion days, and they'd all show up in green shirts on environmental days, and they'd all show up in red shirts on education days. I saw them. It is the exact same people. Mm-hmm. I don't have theories of whether they're paid or, just activists or those kind of things, but I don't know that.
Maybe
But
both.
I know it was the same people.
Yeah.
Wearing a different color shirt that came every week with the whole group.
Yeah. Ralph, how much outside money is involved in North Carolina politics?
Depends on what you mean by outside money.
Out of state money, I guess.
North Carolina, better than most states, but as you might suspect, most money in the politics comes from California, New York.
Yeah.
Even among Republican circles, that's the population centers.
Right. Yeah.
Florida, Texas. Florida don't need it in Florida. Somebody else.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard to say that Florida's out of state money because like a third of our residents are probably there.
Right.
Vice versa.
Depends on what month of the year it comes from.
Right.
But beyond that, so I would say probably around a third of the money comes from out of state. A little more if you talk about the RNC and DNC money, because we're a competitive state.
Yeah, we've kind of turned into a swing state.
Right.
Sort of.
And so if you're the RNC and you raise $500 million nationally, what are you going to do with it? You're going to spend it in North Carolina. You're going to spend it in Pennsylvania. You're going to spend it now in Georgia. All these states. And Democrats are going to spend it in the same manner. But I will say that predominantly that money is for those races. They'll send a little bit for, to toss in
a little bit,
voter turnout and do the robos and those kind of things.
Yeah.
But predominantly they're targeting Senate races, targeted House races, and presidential races. Now, they'll play a little in governors.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how much do you think there's going to be a large push to spend?
I think you will see
big national money on the governor's race.
Yes, I think. I don't know of anyone that has ever scared Democrats as much as Mark Robinson does. They cannot allow him to get a foothold because he is a real threat to their core base. He is a real threat to minorities leaving their base to support someone else. He's got a message that actually gets through to Hispanic voters,
African American
voters. Yeah, and that terrifies him. Lieutenant Governor of Virginia is in the same boat. That's coming in. She's just not as vocal and perspective as Mark is. I don't know that they're worried about him being a player on the national stage, like he's going to run for president, but they're worried about his being the spokesman.
Yeah.
That's coming in. They're worried about who he brings over. And people listen, maybe one day, if he spends a term or two as governor, I guess he's as good a candidate as
anybody else.
At that point, because he's got experience.
Yeah.
Well, why is it that it always seems like even, Pat McCrory was sort of a flash in the pan. And when it came right down to it, a one-term governor, right? Why is it that North Carolina always elects as Democratic governor?
Some of it's history. Roy Cooper is reelected because there are people in Eastern North Carolina that have voted for Roy Cooper on the ballot for 30 years.
Yeah.
Where's he from?
Rocky Mount.
Okay, so that's a lot of support.
Right, and you get down there, particularly among elderly voters. Well, I've always voted for that Roy.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Same kind of way Ma Bev was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I call her Ma Bev. I started doing it a long time. Beverly Purdue. Yeah, Ma Bev.
I was like, do you know her that well?
Because, I mean, honestly, and I'll be 100% honest with you, I've never seen a politician like Beverly Purdue. Like, look, I'm not the most eloquent speaker of all time, for sure. Whoops.
It's okay.
Can't hear no more.
Yeah, can't hear no more. But I'm not an eloquent speaker, but Beverly Purdue could not, towards the end of her term, could not put together a cognitive sense. I mean, you think Joe Biden's bad. This lady, I mean, not because she was old either, I don't think. She just could not form a sentence.
So, I mean, I can't say much. I feel like that most days, but I don't know, man. Joe Biden's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But that older generation, I think they got one more candidate that fits in that, and she's running for lieutenant governor, and it's Rachel Hunt.
Okay.
Who is the daughter of Jim Hunt.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than her, their roster's out. Like of
Much like on the national level.
Right. That they are now having to take candidates that grew up in this environment politically. That don't relate to people that have voted for them for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's the kind of, it's a new group. There's a significant change in the Democrat Party. There's a new group of candidates, and they don't bring with them. I mean, if you're not in downtown Raleigh, you've not voted for Josh Stein.
Right.
That's what's coming in. He ran for Attorney General, but I think this primary will show you people might not have known who they were voting for Attorney General. They just picked the name of the letter beside
the party.
That's what coming in. But those candidates like Jim, and I think Jim Hunt's, because of his daughter, will be the last one of them. I mean, he served governor for 16 years. Yeah. You can't even do that anymore.
Yeah, they passed the law to prevent because of him, right?
Right. But then they forgot to exclude him going forward, so he came back and served. He served for 8 years. They passed the law to limit you to 2 terms, but because he was grandfathered, he came back and ran for 8 more years afterwards. So he got 16 years in between his term.
Guy. Wow.
When lives right up here. Jim Martin was elected Republican. It's when they passed the limitation to 2 terms, but Hunt could still run because
he was grandfathered.
Because he was not. He didn't serve terms before the constitutional amendment. And so I think she's that one that still will bring a lot of that to the table. So I think there's Hal or Fitz O'Neill have got a real fight on their hands for a lieutenant governor. The advantage they've got is there's not going to be a whole lot of voters who come and vote for Donald Trump and Mark Robinson. Oh, but I really like that Democrat running for lieutenant governor.
Right.
I think we've got solid enough candidates and boisterous enough candidates that if they're winning, they're carrying all the way down the ticket.
Sure.
I can name all kinds of people that will vote for moderate candidates that don't like Mark Robinson or Donald Trump.
Right.
The other people, I'm like, I don't know any of them.
Right. Exactly.
Like that lieutenant governor's too liberal for me.
Right.
So, I think they've still got a real good shot at winning lieutenant governor, but she's kind of the last of that generation. Roy Cooper was there, voted for him forever.
What?
Good old Roy.
Good old Roy. Old Roy, like the dog food.
Like the Walmart brand, the dog food.
Exactly.
I heard that was Sam Walton's dog's name.
Really?
Old Roy, and that's why they branded their dog food Old Roy.
Makes sense.
That dog's probably worth more than all of us combined.
Right. Even dead, that dog's worth more than all of us combined.
Well, do you get a sense on, and obviously you're a Republican, but can you offer like just through neutral glasses, what is the strategy of the Democratic Party moving forward? Not only nationally, but even on state levels. Like, I don't understand what the strategy is. So, I mean, everybody keeps saying, okay, well, you're going to you got to put up somebody besides Joe Biden. Who? Besides California governor,
Newsom.
Yeah, Newsom.
Gavin Newsom.
Oh,
And everybody hates him.
give me a California governor any day.
Yes, I would
To
die.
run a
I mean,
campaign against. I'll just take the people who have left California and count their votes.
Yeah,
right,
for real.
exactly. But what is the strategy? As a person who's involved in politics and even in party politics, what's the strategy? What are they banking on?
So, and coming from a Republican politician, I would
Sure.
I
I
would
mean,
say
yeah, I
take
mean,
this with
obviously
any
I'm
grain
asking-
of sand. But I really feel that Democrats have pushed so much for full acceptance of any group they identify.
Right.
Like when it's almost to the individual level. The individual, not that you tolerate it, not that it exists, not that you don't oppress it, but you celebrate it
Right.
as an individual. And I think that worked so well for them when it was large groups of oppressed people.
Yeah.
When they were talking about African Americans, when they were talking about minorities, and they were pulling those kind of groups together, that was very successful. But the groups have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller,
More fringe.
and quite frankly, more controversial. You know, it was one thing to say, from a Republican point of view, it was one thing to say that you should accept gays, gays should be treated well, they should have a place in society. It was another to say you must embrace and accept their marriage as what marriage is.
Right.
It is, and now we've moved to, even though someone is a male, they identify as a female, therefore you have to celebrate them as a female and recognize them as a female.
Yeah.
That has kind of pushed the Democrat Party to this point that the average person can't follow.
Right.
When you start telling me that men can participate in women's sports
Yeah, you lost.
That is just,
and win the NCAA swimming title as a woman when you were barely making the team as a male, that somehow because you identify in that manner,
that negates all of your
hang
biological.
on. He did grow his hair out.
Sure. Sure. And I'm trying.
yeah, and I'm not even getting into identifying who he is or how he should be treated or those kind of things.
No, I know.
Like,
Because
I'm
you're a
getting into-
decent person,
I'm
Ralph.
getting into do we have to recognize his pure falsehood
Right.
Yeah.
as truth, and
Yeah.
that's where the Democrat I think is starting to fall apart.
Well, Dave Chappelle said it. He said it. He said it. He point blank. He said the question is to what degree do I have to participate in your own self-image,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
and why do I have to participate in it?
Well, did you see they stripped him of all the medals and awarded them to the second runner-up that was actually female?
Really, I didn't know.
Yes,
that.
the NCAA stripped all the medals from, I don't know what his name is, Leah Thomas.
Yeah.
And gave them to, I forgot her name.
Yeah, Riley.
Yeah,
Gaines.
Riley Gaines. She now holds all the medals.
She actually came and testified to
Yeah.
General Assembly. I got the privilege of meeting her and those kind of things. One of the things I didn't recognize in that situation until talking to her is in one of the 200 meter, whatever it is, she actually tied with him. As rare as a tie is in swimming, because it's down to like the thousandths of a second, she tied. They only had one trophy.
Yeah.
Because they needed him to take the pictures. They told him he could have the trophy.
Yeah.
And they would send her one later. That's what coming in. And when she asked, they had no answer. Because it was a promotion.
Yeah.
It was, a flat out promotion
Of a political ideology.
of an ideology, not a competition. Where it's going to go over. I think they were playing Hiwassee Dam. We had a team here in Western North Carolina. That girl came with them. Was playing high school volleyball. Now, there really is a co-ed volleyball where men and women play together. That is played on a 7-foot net, just like men's volleyball is. But because he was identifying as a woman, he's playing on the girls' team on a 6-foot net. That's what coming in. When he goes up and spikes the ball, hits a girl right in the neck, concussion, broken bones, fractured bones, whatever else, still has concentration issues and those kind of things nearly a year later from where she's playing, because biologically he was serving on a net that was too short, that didn't match his height, his strength, or his weight.
Yeah.
Because he identified as something else. I'm not saying there can't be sports. Both my boys wrestle. Women participate in wrestling. That's what coming in. There's oddities that make advantages for women in certain weight classes and for men in other weight classes. My boys are both on the far end of the spectrum. One's a heavyweight, one's 215.
Probably not encountering a whole lot of women.
Not a lot of women in the division. That's
Right.
coming in, but they've practiced, and those kind of things. But the 112 weight class and maybe 115 now, whatever else, is more likely to be a senior as a woman, and those kind of things. More likely to be a freshman, as a high schooler, and so there's some strange things that plays out. They are building a women's division.
Yeah.
But the advantage there of size is mitigating wrestling because you're in a weight class.
Right.
You're in
Right.
and you're running 2 hours before the match to spit enough water to get to your weight class. But in volleyball, it wasn't there. And we've got a girl that's permanently injured. So the tribe and multiple other counties in the far west of the state, school boards, counties, others, passed resolutions. We will forfeit any game played against them because we're not going to put our girls at risk.
Sure.
As they should.
Yeah.
I mean, the average high school men's basketball sports probably has more people dunking than, for a school especially, than a WNBA team does.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the raw biological facts of the
dispassionate truth.
Yeah. Yes, it is a dispassionate truth.
But I guess to go back to my criticisms of the Democrat Party and those kind of things, they've abandoned truth for opinion. Like, they don't believe that truth exists.
No, they don't.
Truth is my truth. Truth is relativity. And
it's relative
truth. That's the fallacy, because it keeps moving on them internally.
Right.
J.K. Rowling's one of the farthest feminists you would ever encounter.
She's as left wing
as
left wing can be,
as has been raked over the coals.
Right. Now they're ripping the covers off her book because her name's on it, just because she doesn't accept the new movement.
You know what, though? They still bought the book.
Yeah.
So who's really losing?
Right.
Didn't say they were smart.
I just wonder, like, I don't know how. And I don't consider myself an intellectual by any means, but I do consider myself somebody who thinks. And I look at some of my friends who are self-described liberals, Democrats, and I'm like, and I've already had a lot of them that can't do it any longer. That it's just no longer the intellectually sustainable.
Honest.
Yeah. If you have any intellectual honesty whatsoever, there's no way you can look at this set of beliefs and come away.
Dude, if I was a woman, I would be pissed.
I would too. And I wonder what your mom would think about this.
Absolutely irate. The idea that a man can put on woman face and be a woman is insulting and degrading to women. It's awful. It's awful.
The fact that you're saying this, it's not only just adults that this has been being pushed on, it's on our children.
Yeah.
Has North Carolina passed the Republican legislature passed any laws?
Concerning
gender affirming care?
We have actually passed, talked about earlier, we've banned the prohibition of men and women's sports. That's coming in kind of oddly enough over the objection of the High School Athletic Association, which is a whole nother conversation to get into.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We actually had to go into, because these were happening in North Carolina, we banned minors receiving gender surgeries, changing their genders.
Yeah.
And a senator from Asheville, I'll never forget this, stood up on the floor and cried crocodile tears because her friends could not mutilate their 3-year-old child.
Yeah, that's great.
3-year-old child.
And so there's a real division in procedure. I'm not saying certain procedures don't ever have to occur. There are things that happen to people biologically where they present both genders.
There's
Sure.
intersex.
Oh, yeah.
That's
There's
becoming
absolutely.
Trans people, transsexuals exist.
Right,
100%.
that's what's coming in. But to take someone at that young of an age who identifies, and starting with hormone blockers, and actually Britain just banned
Yeah, I
I saw
know.
that. We
They
talked
did.
about that
that's
on the
what's
line.
coming
Yep,
in
they did.
because what they're showing, despite what all's being claimed by the science or whatever else, is that mental health issues were actually worse
Oh, sure.
after the transition. For my little old Mitchell County logic here, when you mess somebody up that bad, why are you surprised their mental health issues are worse? Like when you're giving them hormones opposite of what their body's producing to block the ones their body's producing, like, and what they found too is that for those that didn't have this gender reassignment surgery or those kind of things, that the vast majority grew out of it.
Yeah, or ended up presenting as homosexual.
Right,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
grew out of believing they were another gender.
Yeah.
You know, I will say this: I know when I went through it and everything else, testosterone was a powerful force in the world.
It absolutely
It
is.
That's what coming in,
As is estrogen.
right. And when
Yeah.
you start producing it, you may come in line with where your body is.
Amazing how that works,
Yeah,
Ralph. It's like biological
It's like we were created,
reality has played itself out over millions and millions.
You
of
know
people.
what?
or that we were created a certain way, and that was the
right,
intent.
right.
What really bothers me and what we see here more than anything in the whole trans debate is you see the exploitation of people who have severe mental illness for money. That's what the medical industry is doing to these people. It's just pure exploitation.
I'm curious: is the UNC health system, Duke, Wake Forest, are they big proponents of this gender affirming care? Because I know
So,
that's a big part of our state.
It is my understanding that the center at Duke was involved. Certain practices at Carolina may have been involved in referrals and other things to those centers. It was not a regular occurrence, but they denied it's happening and then had to come back and say,
Okay, it did.
yeah, it did. That's coming initial action. We would never do that, whatever else, only to find out they had. And so now, do I think we had meals that were lining these things up every day?
Right,
and those
probably
kind of
not.
things?
No.
But you shouldn't mutilate one child.
No.
So that's what coming in, and I still feel as morally repugnant as I could find it. If an adult, I might make the argument to say adult might mean 25 in this case.
Sure.
Like I need for your
Your
development
brain
to
be
finish.
fully developed, yes.
But an adult wants to go have a surgery and
Go
wants to
for
pay
it.
for
It's
a
a
surgery.
free country.
Like, I'm repulsed, sick at my stomach, all those other kind of things, but not my job
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
to.
It's their
to
life,
stop
not
those
yours.
kind of things.
Yeah.
But that's an adult man, and you can ask my parents. They would probably agree with this. Both of them would. When I was 5 years old, if you would have offered me the opportunity to chop this hand off and have it replaced with a hook and wear a pirate's wig all the time, I would have probably done it
Yeah.
because I was Captain James Hook. Damn it,
Yeah.
I was Captain Hook.
Me too. I mean, you think about that with all kinds of things. I mean,
Every picture of me from that, I was like this. I was like, ha, 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 ha. I was a pirate when I was 6.
Maybe I push it a little more controversial. Like a kid at 6 or 3 or 5, there's not even something wrong with the kid that you need to surgery or fix.
No.
there's something wrong with a parent.
The parents, and that's the thing. Number one,
How does the 3-year-old even communicate
right
what they are or what their gender is?
And here they're trying to tell you that literally newborn babies
Right.
can tell their
And-
gender.
And I'm
Jesus.
saying, you want to talk about what the stereotype is? There's nothing wrong with a 4-year-old boy liking pink.
no.
That's become it is. There's nothing wrong with those kind of things.
I
They
loved
will
Barbies when I was
Right.
young.
They will grow and develop into those things. Like they're blank slates. They
They are
pick up
children.
what's
are
around them.
slates.
Therein lies the real truth.
Right.
Yes.
Is it they are an impressionable
Yep.
blank slate.
They
It
are.
might
And-
as well just be a canvas that you
And
Yeah.
among older children, the number of these kids that are dealing with trans issues, and trans issues getting more and more odd by the year.
and more prevalent.
Yeah, but when you look at those, the number of people who have been abused,
Oh,
who've
it's
been sexually
astronomical.
abused,
Astronomical.
who've been through those kind of things. This may be a reaction to the environments they've been through
Sure.
more than this is actually. But like I said, it gets stranger than others. It's not just, I think I'm the other gender now. It's, I think I'm a cat. I think I'm a,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Well,
trans species.
trans species, and
You want
this
to be a
is-
snake, Josh?
no, I don't.
You don't?
I
I don't.
I figured
I
you
like
would.
I like to eat my food. I like to chew it. I don't want to eat my food whole.
Just swallow it whole.
Yeah.
how about this? I have one of my 9 counties that the school board was asked by 3 parents to put litter boxes in the girls' bathroom.
That's insanity.
Was this Avery County?
I'm not going to get into who it was.
Well,
I heard it.
so that's
That's
interesting
right.
that it's
Now-
the girls' bathroom too, because there is a much higher proclivity for females to experience this kind of rapid onset gender dysphoria or body
Really?
dysmorphia. Yeah,
fortunately, the school board was wise enough to respond with no.
good.
No other words, just no.
No.
That's what coming in. But anybody want to take bets on whether if you went to any of those girls' homes,
Oh,
there's a
I'm
litter
sure.
box in their bathroom?
I'm sure,
No, I want to. Here's what I want. I want
and
to
I'm
see
glad-
somebody shitting in a litter box in a public bathroom.
Well, I'm
and I'm
glad-
sorry for my language, but I want to see it.
I'm glad their parents have to clean that litter box.
Yeah,
for
me
them.
too.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'd also like to see somebody that identifies as a dog or a cat lick their own butt too.
Dude,
If you can
okay,
do that,
how
if you
much
can
of
lick your own
this-
butt, I will give you that.
how much of this, because we were at Christmas shopping in Asheville last year, and I was we were in the mall, and I saw 2 people in full doggy dom gear walking around, one leading the other with a leash. How much of all this is just sexual kinks being played out? No, and here's another question to go further on that. At what line does that become SA? And I can't say the word on YouTube because it'll get pulled. But seriously, I mean, people who are doing that, you're including me in your sexual activities without my consent.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair question to ask.
But I would say that like the bigger concept, maybe in the treatment of mental disorders, the end game isn't your contentness or your happiness with whatever else you find, but maybe we have services that really help people overcome the challenges
Yeah.
that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And not services that make them comfortable with the challenges they're dealing with.
Right.
Well, and here's the thing: gender
Yep.
dysphoria is in the DSM.
Yeah. It is.
It is a mental disorder,
Yeah.
by definition. Still,
But Jay, so was homosexuality back in the day.
well, sure.
I know. I'm just
understand
saying.
that.
I'm just saying that's the argument there.
My point was going to be is with what other mental disorder do we treat
Do we
that
affirm it?
disorder by affirming
Yeah.
that it's
We don't.
what
Someone,
if you affirmed schizophrenics?
or dementia patients?
Yeah.
Like I've worked in facilities where I've taken care of dementia patients. I've worked in the emergency departments. What if we had someone come in who was in psychosis, and that has happened? We don't affirm what they are saying. We try to reorient them into reality. I don't know, man.
I mean, but that just sets a dangerous precedent.
I think a lot of it honestly stems from what I was saying earlier. It's the sexual kinks that are being played out, and because porn is so prevalent and such a huge problem now. Everything is it's hypersexualized. Everybody has seen the worst of the worst of the worst. I mean, porn is such a huge thing online now. In order to get their gratification, it pushes the envelope further and further and further. And all I heard was, it's not a slippery slope. It's not a slippery slope. And I believed it. I believed it for a minute. And I'm more than willing to admit when I'm wrong. I believed it wasn't a slippery slope, dude. It is absolutely a slippery slope.
It absolutely
100%.
In North Carolina, that was another thing that got passed recently, right? The
slippery slope.
The porn. You have to age verification.
Yeah, age verification for
that's
porn.
coming in. We did an age verification.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
I will tell you the stuff that has come out of public school libraries.
It's disgusting.
That's what coming in that I would characterize as porn.
Yeah.
They actually gave us a book from one of the triad schools that they removed from their library and put it on our desk. And our attorneys told us not to take it off the chamber floor. Legislators have a legal immunity on the chamber floor. But because it contained graphic drawings of minors,
my God,
that there was a risk that it would be considered child pornography if you took it off the floor.
Wow.
And we're putting this in books.
Right, and this was in the books. We had
Wow.
in pre-K, this was also in Guilford County, so they couldn't come up identifying cards, for colors and those kind of things. They couldn't figure out what to do for the white color. I say that tongue in cheek. So it was the pregnant man. That's what coming in pre-K. They're telling people that there is a pregnant man. Now, I don't know what relativity you're living in. That's falsehood. Like, does not exist, has never existed.
No.
Cannot exist.
A biological man
Yes.
cannot be pregnant.
No. No, men can't be pregnant. If you're a trans man, sure. We'll say trans men can get pregnant because that's a woman who still might have the proclivity to be.
Right.
But a man, words mean something.
That's really the scary part of
Words
it, is
mean
when you start
something.
blurring those lines, where does that stop?
I didn't know until, this session that I was a cisgendered binary.
Yeah.
That's what coming in because you know what? As much as I've got education, I didn't even know what that meant.
Well,
because that's made up.
That's that's part of this new speak. That's from that
Just
world.
change the vocabulary if you want to win an argument. So I don't even know what I'm talking about.
So therein lies the truth. Really, that's what it is. It's change.
Well, and it's very simple. Who controls language controls the narrative.
Leftists have been great at this for a long time.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Just to explain to everybody, cisgendered means I identify as the gender I was born with.
Yes.
And binary believes that I only see as two.
Yes.
There's only male or female. So
Right.
I'm somebody who only sees two genders, who
Right.
identifies as the one I was born with. But
Do we have a color on the gay flag? I hope we do, because if not, I'll
Here's a paradox for you though. Okay, so when you get into the trans stuff, you have trans men and trans women. Isn't that a binary?
I didn't say it made sense.
Isn't that a binary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, we've solved that argument. All right.
Oh my God.
Moving on, Ralph. One thing I wanted to highlight. And I know we're getting long on time here, but one thing I wanted to go back. We're solving the world's problems.
We
one
are.
at a time.
No, we're bitching.
I
About
was amazed. Yeah, that's exactly what we are. I was amazed last time you came on here. You were talking about the tax stuff in North Carolina and what the Republicans have done with the tax rate. Can you go over that very briefly one more time?
Yeah.
And give us a brief glimpse of what we're set to go under in the next couple
So
years?
January 1st just crossed, so another quarter point comes off. We're down to 4.5 now in the state income tax since the last time I was on. We now have in statute that's going to go all the way to 2.5. That's coming in year by year. So barring somebody repealing the law, we will go to 2.5%. that's personal income tax.
And that's 1/4% every year until we get to that.
Some years it's 0.5%.
Okay,
So we've
all
got a schedule for how it's declining, and we cheat a little bit. Like when we go to 4, we don't go to 4, we go to 3.99 because it has us beat all the other states that are at 4.
Sure.
That's what coming in. So, nobody
Grocery store logic.
Right,
Yeah.
nobody cares at 4.25.
Yeah.
But at 4, we're going to 3.99.
Right.
We were under 4. When I started the General Assembly 14 years ago, top marginal tax rate was 7.75%.
Yeah.
That's coming. There was actually a surtax that could go above and beyond that. We eliminated that to a flat tax so that everybody else pays. So everybody pays the same rate. We're now up to the point. I think it's first $24,000 of income is exempted from taxes as well, and so everything above that, you'll now pay 4.25, continuing to decline year after year until my lips to God's ears that we don't have an income tax in this state anymore because it's the most unfair thing we could come up with.
Sure.
Corporate income tax was at 6%. We've now cut that, I think, to 2.5%. It is scheduled in the next 4 years to go away. So we won't charge a corporate income tax. I'm somebody who firmly believes corporations don't pay tax; customers do. This is coming in. So if I'm forcing your corporation to pay taxes, we will. We already have we have the lowest corporate tax of any state that charges one, and we're going to transition that to we're not charging one.
And when does this happen?
This will be by, I believe, 2030. It'll be gone.
Wow.
And I'm kind of like the Romans. We should salt the earth wherever it was created so that nothing can ever grow back there.
Right.
Yeah. We did a little bit early on sales tax. We went from 7.75% to 6.75% was the tax rate. And I remember even the first years, all the Chicken Littles came out from the tax rates. We've done some other things in franchise tax and others to lower those rates. But the sky's falling. We're never going to have any money.
Right.
When I started, we were $2.7 billion short on the budget. We were right at $4 billion in debt to the federal government. Unemployment. If anybody remember what those taxes were like.
Yeah.
That's what's coming in. We now have a $4 billion surplus to the federal government. The rate is now the lowest rate on unemployment the feds will allow us to charge. That's what's coming in. We have a $5 billion rainy day fund, which is enough to cover the 2 worst economic downturns in the state of North Carolina we could pay for out of our rainy day fund. That's how we set it up. And we had a $3 billion surplus last year in revenue. We went from $2.7 billion deficit to $3 billion surplus by cutting tax rates. And part of what we did every time we've cut tax rates is, I'll be honest, it's more of a guideline than a requirement. But we have tried to limit the growth of state government to inflation plus population growth. That's what's coming in. So as inflation's going up, as populations are growing up, we know we need to grow state government to match those. But that's kind of our target. Now, when we get in negotiations with the governor or with other, and they're like, if you'll include this or those kind of things, we'll pass the budget. But we always aim at that target. And so by doing that, we're actually taking the growth of state government and keeping it under the revenue curve, even though we're bringing the revenue curve down. And so being able to do that has made tremendous benefits to our tax code, to our system. We've been related the last 2 years, the #1 state in the United States to do business, to start a new business, to move a business to.
Eliminating the corporate income tax.
Yeah, that's going to make it
do nothing but help that.
Very small business.
Now, a lot
friendly.
of businesses don't pay in the corporate tax structure.
Right.
A lot of or S corps or those kind of things that pay in the individual tax market, those kind of things. But that's their organizational decision.
Sure.
Right.
That's coming in. Now, there's downsides to being a corporation too. And look, the federal tax is really the driver.
Yeah.
We're the peanuts.
Right.
That's what's coming in. Just because the state doesn't charge it doesn't mean they have no bill.
Right.
That's what's coming in. It's just you don't have any additional bill.
Well, but people don't. I mean, moving towards no corporate taxes and even moving towards no individual income taxes is a huge thing.
Yeah.
For things that you wouldn't necessarily think. Like, I guarantee you the Carolina Panthers will be able to attract some great free agents when we're, because that's a
compete with the Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
Exactly. That's a big driver for teams in Florida, for teams in Tennessee, for teams in Texas.
Yep.
This is why you see a lot of sports teams
Although,
in those.
I will tell you, if you don't know this, one of the tricks that California and New York play. So if the Panthers travel to California and play, they have to pay the California tax on 1/18 of their salary.
Are you for real?
And if they set a record in their contract, they have to pay the California state tax if that record was set in California.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So they do that for all professional sports teams and others.
Shady.
So they still tax all the other teams when they come to North Carolina. The key is that your tax you pay in your state is a write-off to that. So California's tax, I think, is at 13. So if you make $1 million a game, you have to pay 13% of $1 million. Because North Carolina's tax is 4.25%, you get to write off 4.25% of the 13. You only send them 8.5 or whatever else.
Right.
If North Carolina doesn't charge one, you have to send them the whole 13.
Oh my gosh.
That's highway robbery.
Your state tax is a write-off to their tax. So you owe 13, they allow you to write off the other state tax you paid, so you're not double taxed.
Right, not double taxed.
Right.
Still,
so
I mean,
you're not having to pay the 13 in California
Holy
plus the
cow.
4 in North Carolina. Right. But it's there's an interesting little quirk to that, to where you play the game determines your tax.
Well, ultimately, where you're getting most of your salary is coming from that state.
You put half your games are home games.
Yeah.
So you're going to play them against
Gotcha.
those kind of teams. But it's not an absolute
Right.
for eliminating the taxes.
Right.
But,
but it's just, but it does. I mean, that plays. I mean, they talk about it. I'm a big sports radio guy. I'm a big, sports follower. And that's a huge consideration for people and where they go. And a lot of people love to play in Miami and Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah.
Because
do you blame them?
Your signing bonus is solely in the state.
Right. Which a lot of the salaries are paid in signing bonuses now. Too.
Now I think you're starting to see in professional sports, people want to break records, not only in front of their home crowd because of notoriety and celebration, but for tax reasons. They want to break it in front of their home crowd.
Right. That's pretty crazy. But I just think that whole thing that I've went back and I've listened to our episode with you before several times, and you went over this in depth. I thought that's crazy. I mean, that goes to show you right there. I mean, like, cutting taxes works.
Yeah.
As economic stimulus. It's amazing.
It does if you manage your money well.
If you manage your money well and have a plan. That's what other thing I found very impressive, and I've touted this a lot, is that you have a plan in place.
I would say there's another part to it, and we've done it with the rainy day fund. You have to have reserves that it doesn't all collapse with one downturn in the economy.
Right.
It's coming in, because I will tell you, once you start going up, you ain't going to keep going back down.
Yeah.
You also, with another thing we've done is a strategy that's really made an opportunity for things like the school system and others, is we are trying to shift our spend from recurring expenses to non-recurring expenses. If we can move money to helping with water and sewer lines and those kind of things, when those are built, the money's spent. If you give all employees a raise that equates to $1 billion, you must continue that $1 billion, and in fact even grow that $1 billion to meet inflation. And
in perpetuity.
You put $1 billion into water and sewer. Once you've done $1 billion in water and sewer, you have another $1 billion available under your tax system that's undesignated.
Right.
And you could do it to water sewer again. You could do it to new school constructions. You could do it to any of those type of things. But because it's in that kind of non-recurring category, even when we talk about giving bonuses to state employees, one of the biggest challenges we have is we really made mistakes for decades with retirees. I'm not saying retirees don't deserve more,
Sure.
but we didn't create a system. When you retire from the state of North Carolina, there's a whole complicated formula, looks at years of service and your high 4-year salary. We now pay you that amount for the rest of your life. And it's actuarially sound. We took out enough money and invest enough money that we should be able to pay that out. But the problem is it doesn't include inflation.
Right.
And so every year your $48,000, $4,000 a month is buying less and less as you go through 30 years of retirement. But there's nothing in the system to add more money. But if I give you 3% raise, I can't just give you 3% of your retirement. I have to give you enough money to fund that 3% in perpetuity for the rest of your retirement.
Yeah.
Good grief.
And so it is an insanely expensive proposition to give a cost of living raise to a retiree. And that's assuming.
And that's not the function of your personal thoughts on retirees or anything. It's just a flaw in the system.
Right. That it wasn't built to build it to begin with. It wasn't investing enough money to create that to begin with. I can't make up that difference. Now, if I want to give a bonus to retirees of 3%,
Right.
then that's fine. That's the amount it is. I take the budget amount.
It's a one-time
I
expenditure.
pay it.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. But, we're expecting a 6.5% return, and we're so vested in the bond market and others, we're almost never meeting it anyway.
Right.
And so I'd have to fund an amount 20 sometimes the amount of the 3% raise to be able to invest it and draw the interest off to pay for the.
Just out of curiosity, would there be any interest in using something like marijuana legalization to fund those types of things? Has that been talked about at all?
Look, I'll give you the truth on it that for all those things, just like the education lottery. Education is attached to the lottery not to fund education, but to ensure that the lottery passed.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's what's coming in. So the real question is not what is done with the money. It's that does giving the money to a certain area of the budget ensure the passage of whatever bill you're wanting to have.
Gotcha.
But no doubt about it, that would be a funding source.
It would, but if I gave it to the, let's say some I supported or whatever,
Right.
if I gave it to the general fund where it would be most needed and we could decide what to do with it every year, it'll never pass.
Right.
Like nobody's like, woohoo, let's go give more money to the general fund.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what's coming in. If I tie it to education, as the legislature did with the lottery, I can pull the backdoor trick. So it is true that every dime spent in the lottery goes to education. Yes, absolutely, it's true. They cut a check from the lottery to education. Right. Now, you think when we sit down and write the budget, we don't say, okay, education's starting with $900 million this year.
Right.
That's what coming in. It's coming from the lottery.
Right.
And we need to give them $15 billion to fully fund education.
Right.
I don't say we're going to give them $16 billion and pretend like they're not getting the check from the lottery.
Right.
That's what coming in. So they literally gave the money, and then the first budget they passed, they basically took it out of education to spend somewhere else they wanted to. So it's the backdoor trick. When it is technically true that every dime in the lottery goes. What we've actually done now with the school funding, we've actually moved a big portion of the lottery money into a separate fund that is for school capital. And we move it every year, and schools apply individually, again, the non-recurring portion.
Okay.
And if they can get so much for a school or so much for renovations in a particular county, the next year the lottery puts that money in there, but that need's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Some other schools got a need.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we're funding them.
Right.
But if you want to talk about it, whatever other bill it would happen to be.
Same.
Right.
Yeah.
Same story.
The question comes down to, What they do with sports gambling? They gave the money to UNC schools athletics. You want to draw Western and Pembroke and others and give them money to run their athletic programs at the time the NIL's coming in, at the time all these other kind of things is, and you might touch the golden ring of Carolina fans.
Right.
This might mean money for my basketball team. Not that your basketball team needs any money.
So they're using it as a mechanism
or NC State.
Gotcha.
Those kind of things. If you want the sports-minded people, you give money to college athletics.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, go to Western Stadium. They need it.
Yeah.
They in bad shape over there. It's the same stadium in the 1970s.
Oh, wow.
And those kind of things. And it makes a real difference to upgrade apps facilities.
Absolutely does.
People don't know that, because being an alum and loving that school, and now representing it, when they beat Michigan and won the national title, the average SAT score went up over 100 points at school.
Oh, wow.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
The year after, in the following 2 years, it was more competitive to get into Appalachian than it was Carolina. Appalachian was accepting a fewer percentage of their applicants than Carolina was. Because
that's crazy.
Wow.
The whole world saw us. The whole world knew who we were. And then they chose to apply. I would love to tell you that high school seniors all across this state look at academic programs and job prospects and say,
no.
If I go here into this engineering program, I can get this job to pay this degree.
Right.
That is not part of the plan.
Right.
No.
That's what coming in. And the team I've watched throw a round ball into a round hoop plays a lot of influence on where they choose to apply, or an oblong ball between two uprights.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of difference in who they apply. And it's the whole marketing of the schools.
Yeah.
It happened last week. NC State, my other alumni, ran the gauntlet and did what was impossible. I know y'all sat in middle school and whatever. That's when they rolled the card in with the antenna on top of it.
Yes, we did.
And on Friday, we watched the ACC tournament. And when we changed classes, we just moved TVs.
Yeah.
Right.
And some teachers' classes had better reception than others. And they'd be like, no, move in here. I miss the days of having cable when to do it. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But that's what coming in. And if your teacher wasn't showing it, they were watching it over there. And there wouldn't be anything else going on in class. Does that influence where people choose to go to school? Absolutely.
Sure. Right.
And so, and it's kind of cyclical. You make more money on athletics, more people bet on athletics. And
that's the truth.
Yeah.
You generate more money in the whole system. So, but my point was saying that in legislative, most of the time where the funding goes on new things like that is only designed to pass
the law itself. Yeah.
The revenue source.
Yeah.
Right.
Dare I say the tax.
Right.
That's
That
what
makes
coming
sense.
in. Lottery's a tax, just like everything
I'm
else.
just thinking weed for retirees.
There you go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? We could do a whole funding package. I'm sorry. I'm just joking.
I understand where you're at. But that's what coming in. We had a little bit
North
different
Carolina
places.
marijuana retiree the sweepstakes.
Sweepstakes. We got to put gambling in there too.
Right,
somehow.
Let me throw a little damper on that, because all these states that have done marijuana are now there are states that are proposing allowing heroin and cocaine and
There are, but you got to look too. That's like Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco, and there's a whole slew of like awful policy that goes along with that
but
too.
where was Portland 20 years ago versus what we're arguing with now?
Absolutely.
And then,
Yeah, it was this. Yeah, I know.
I think it could be, again, went back and listened to, like I do, a lot of what you say, and that does make sense. It really does. There again, it's like with anything else, there's a lot more factors to consider.
Oh yeah,
rather than just it, and marijuana is among those. It's one of those issues that it's not just face value. There's a whole entire book of things that and problems that you open up, and you have to be prepared for those. And maybe, just maybe one day we can figure some of those out. Hopefully,
That's the only way to figure that out, or figure things like that out, is to have these real conversations.
that's right.
Well, and I actually say this: I don't think every state's going to settle marijuana
No.
before the feds do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's what coming in. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, they're already opening it at the tribe. They're already, those kind of things. Maybe maybe the Fed turns directions and starts going towards, and what I would see is a better direction than everything else. But the way this world's going, I mean, come on, let's go another Biden-Harris term. That's what's coming in. You think we ain't gonna have
I don't know
legalized
if
marijuana
we
at the
can
end of
survive
that?
another Biden here.
I think that might be the only way they. I mean, I've said this forever, though. It seems to be that I can't believe that presidential candidate's not done it just as a way to.
Yeah.
It seems like low hanging fruit to
Stop
me.
giving them advice. That's what's coming in.
Maybe Trump will do it.
Yeah,
That's funny. We keep going back to that. Like, that's
Sorry,
something I don't feel strongly about it.
I don't.
Like,
I don't really either. Honestly, the only reason I'm curious about
don't.
it is because a lot of people my age are, and a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
people
yeah.
younger,
It is-
Look,
It's
a
a
lot of
huge
those
issue.
people that care a lot show up at the General Assembly.
Yeah, and
The general we got doing jumping jacks in front of the committee and all these kind of things that happen
again,
in there.
gotta love stoner culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, it's literally taking Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson and putting them together in one committee meeting. That's I mean, it's all the time
crazy.
there, chasing it down. They smoking in the bathroom before they go into the committee
Wow.
rooms.
Which is just.
We've had somebody light up in the building as a protest.
Right.
There's a protest for you. Let me smoke this weed here in the,
Gosh.
That's what coming in. So,
Well, what's next? I mean, what's just kind of in closing here as we're wrapping up because we do need to wrap up. But what's next on the agenda? What's up?
we're kind of so April 15th is tax day. Everybody
Sure.
get your taxes in.
Love
Make
it.
sure you're squared away with the state of North Carolina.
Yep.
That's what coming in or prepay. Take your choice. We'll give you an extension as long as you prepay. That's what coming in. It will take us 2 to 3 weeks after that to get final revenue estimates. Then we start the short session. And it'll be a lock away process. It's a quick process. We already have a 2-year budget. We've passed and spent money for 2 years. We come in the second year and we adjust some of those, depending on if there's additional revenue, additional cost. We already know Feds smacked us around on Medicaid, not for anything we did other than the fact that because we're more successful as a state, the Feds decide they should pay less of a percentage of our Medicaid bill.
Oh,
So that's going to cost us $120 million.
getting punished for being
Yeah,
successful.
that's coming in. Normal federal policy. That's coming in.
Sounds a lot like what they do to individuals.
That's why we have an income tax. The better you do, the more they take.
Right.
That's coming in. So we've got to shore up some of those things. Opportunity scholarships blew up even above our imagination. So I think, we thought there would be about 26,000 applicants for new scholarships. I think it's coming in at about 61,000
Oh wow.
applicants for new scholarships. So we made some changes to the program so we're not disqualifying people, but anyone now, the amount may vary, but can apply for a scholarship to private schools.
Cool.
And so we'll affect some of our small schools around here, but it's not real big numbers. Bethel and
Right.
Trinity, this
Tri-counties.
Tri-County, those kind of things will be some opportunities. I don't know that they both accept them. I do know Bethel does. I don't know if
Right.
Tri-County does, but that was more popular than anyone estimated. So that's going to cost us another $250 million out of whatever we got off top, but it's the right thing to do.
Sure.
This is coming in, but so after that, that's when we start having decisions to make. And we need every Republican in the House and every Republican in the Senate to agree to vote for a bill so that we can override a governor. So there's a good chance we get in a fight with a governor, and if he picks off one, we're done. If we can't come to an agreement with the House and Senate, we're done. But we have a 2-year budget. So people will get raises July 1 and those kind of things we build into the 2-year budget. We might just say, oh, well, we're going home, see you in January.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where it's going.
So basically, just trying to tweak some things that have already been done.
That's what COVID did. I think there's some some other short session items, but we're feeling pretty good that things will move quickly. Rules are it has to have passed the House or the Senate in the long session to be eligible in the short session.
Nice.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Cool.
So,
Well, Ralph, man, thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on, man.
Really appreciate it
Appreciate
again, man.
Really
it's
enjoyed
awesome
it.
having you again. We need to make this a regular thing, at least once a year.
next time
twice
we
a year.
won't bring up marijuana.
Yes, I won't. I
that's
promise.
okay.
No more marijuana. No more marijuana.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ralph.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
you, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you.